Come all you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
A battle in the heart of Alabama caught our attention. Coal miners in one community, they've been on strike now for months.
Working as long as 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in some of the most dangerous conditions.
I really think that the labor movement is the single greatest force for democracy in the history of the United States.
The story of Alabama is a story of not just resilience, but of militancy.
I say no contract, you say no code. No contract, no contract.
If we ain't all free, ain't none of us free.
You're listening to Alabama's only union talk radio show, The Valley Labor Report, with Adam Keller and Jacob Morrison.
That's right, folks. From the mountains of Kentucky to the bayous of Louisiana, broadcasting online and on the radio from the heart of the Tennessee Valley, the Spice Radio Studios in Huntsville, Alabama. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host and fellow agitator Adam Keller. Today, longshore workers could be going on strike soon. We talk about working class mental health. We give you the latest on the UAW at Ford and Stellantis. All that and more on today's program. If you want to be part of the show today, we've got a phone number, but the line is not open. I apologize because this is a pre-taped episode. We are not in the office today. We have an out-of-office memo, but you can leave us a voicemail. You can give us a call at 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can leave a voicemail throughout the week, and we might respond to it on the next show. So if you haven't gotten enough of us by the time that we wrap up here on the radio, or if you just want to see what we're up to throughout the week, you can find us anywhere you find anything online, in particular at our website, tvlr.fm, but we are also on YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts, all at The Valley Labor Report. Just a reminder, your support helps us stay on the air. Our largest single source of funding comes directly from our listeners. So if you want to become a sustaining donor to the program or make a one-time donation, you can go to tvlr.fm/donate or patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. We've also got a bunch of cool merch for sale at tvlr.fm/store. We've got our logo dad cap. Some of our Join a Union tees are left, and pre-orders are open for union-made matchbooks and a new t-shirt that says Unionize, but like the Supreme logo. And finally, if you're a member of a union, then please do think about getting your local to sponsor the show. We could not do the program without the support of organized labor. You can reach out to us for more details on that. And Adam is not in studio with me right now. We were pre-recording our segments separately, so I will go ahead and give you the disclaimer that any viewpoints or opinions expressed on this program belong solely to their author and do not necessarily represent any organization or sponsor. We welcome all of our listeners, whether you are on YouTube, Facebook, Unclaimed Mysteries Internet Radio, WVNN, WZZA, WHIV, or WMMT, or your favorite podcasting app. We are proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network, and we encourage our listeners to check it out. As most of you know, we're not media professionals, just die-hard unionists who believe that Alabama and the South's labor movement deserve a bigger platform. We're hoping this project can make a difference on that front, and we could not do it without you. We want to thank everybody for tuning in, whether you're a loyal fan or a first-time listener. We appreciate you spending some time with us this morning. Like I said, this is a pre-taped episode. This is pre-taped. I am taping this segment in particular on Tuesday afternoon. So we do not, obviously, we don't have Last Week in Southern Labor prepared for you this week. It's going to be a 2-week roundup in the week following. So instead of jumping into Last Week in Southern Labor, I've got an update for you that does affect working folks in the South and really, frankly, all over the country. And that's this situation with the International Longshoremen's Association. Unavoidable. That's what Forbes is calling a strike of tens of thousands of longshore workers from Texas to Maine, including in Alabama, that is estimated to cost up to $5 billion, not over the course of the strike, not over the course of a month if a strike lasts a month, not even over the course of a week. If these workers strike, if the ILA strikes from Texas to Maine, the strike is estimated to cost up to $5 billion per day. According to analysts at the New York Times, every day that a strike lasts could take up to 6 days to clear. Now, I'm recording this on Tuesday, September 24th, to air on Saturday, September 28th. But here's, and so, therefore, it's possible I'm taking a risk doing this as a pre-tape, but it's newsworthy, and maybe it'll still be relevant by the time that you hear it on Saturday. Things could change between now and Saturday, but they are looking a certain way right now, and I'll give you kind of the long and short of where things stand. And so that is that the contract between the International Longshoremen's Association, which is a union that represents 45,000 workers on ports from Texas to Maine, including 6 of the 10 busiest ports in the United States, who handle 13 million containers annually. The contract between that union and the United States Maritime Alliance, USMX, is set to expire on October 1st, with no deal in sight at the moment. Retail associations and other business interests have sought to convince Biden to invoke the Taft-Hartley Act to break or prevent a strike by the ILA, ostensibly on national security grounds. Interestingly, given that Biden used the mechanisms of the Railway Labor Act to break a potential rail strike in 2022, the White House has been very firm about their disinterest in invoking Taft-Hartley. If the ILA strikes, it will be the first national longshore strike since 1977, according to Forbes. The issues are the same ones that you're used to. Wages have not kept up with inflation. Profits have gone through the roof. And executives have made out like bandits. And now they want to convince the public that the union workers who make the ports of the United States run are the greedy ones. To give you a little bit more fidelity on the issues at play, I want to read at length from a press release that we received from the International Longshoremen's Association. There are a lot of issues at play. Like I said, primarily wages are a big one. And wages not keeping up with inflation in the context of skyrocketing profits and extremely high executive pay. Right? So in this press release from the International Longshoremen's Association, ILA leaders are saying that, quote, their interpretation, the bosses, the company's interpretation of, quote, leading wages is polar opposite to ours, because the USMX is saying that they are offering leading wages to the ILA. The ILA is disputing that. They say, quote, inflation has completely eaten into any raises and wages. Everything has become more expensive even compared to 6 years ago. Our members are struggling to pay their mortgages, rent, car payments, groceries, utility bills, taxes, and in some cases their children's education. USMX's corporate greed has made them delusional, profits over people. They've taken advantage of a low entry wage and a tiered progression system for 30 years. We outright reject their position on the new entry wage. The union leaders further charged that USMX was, quote, trying to fool you with promises of workforce protections for semi-automation. The ILA said, quote, we don't want any form of semi-automation or full automation. We want our jobs, the jobs we have historically done for over 132 years. The top ILA leaders described another important aspect of the master contract, container royalty. They reminded ILA members that container royalty was originally negotiated as a supplemental wage and that all container royalty money belonged to the ILA and its members. Our members should never have to share their container royalty money with the ocean carriers who are currently making record profits. Disregard any information coming from management. I love I love it when they talk like this. Disregard any information coming from management, the ILA wrote. These are the same people who circumvent your contract every day and drag their feet in the grievance and arbitration process. These are the same people who act like Big Brother, watching your every move and creating hostile work environments by putting cameras in your workstations and equipment. As frustrated as we are with our employers, it's almost comical that they believe our members would fall for this nonsense. We are rank and file first administration, and we are taking on this fight for you and your families. Stay strong, stay united, and we will prevail. So say ILA President Harold Daggett and ILA Executive Vice President Dennis Daggett. They have some more details on the industry-leading wages in this segment from the press release. They say USMX claims to offer industry-leading wages. However, their interpretation of leading wages is polar opposite to ours. Inflation has completely eaten into our raises, and everything has become more expensive. Our work is in a shape industry. We are at the beck and call of the ships, and no ships mean no work. The only guarantees our workers have are hourly, daily, or shift guarantees. Our rank-and-file members are not on salary. They work when the ships are docked at the berth, and only if their seniority affords them the opportunity. And that's why it's so important that the Longshore Union is able to secure actually high industry-leading wages. And it's just not true that the wages that the ILA has currently or that the carriers are offering are industry-leading. The ILWU on the West Coast has had higher wages than the ILA for a pretty significant amount of time, and the ILA is trying to get that back. They're negotiating over a 6-year contract is kind of what's on the table right now. And the carriers are saying that the union is asking for 75% over 6 years. The union is saying that it's less than that. They're not being, totally public about what exactly they're asking for, but they are saying it's less than 75%. But it's 75% over 6 years, right? I mean, that's not all that much, actually. It's like something like 10% per year. So it would still be a really good, but over 6 years, a 70% raise, 75% raise is really not, not as much as it sounds when you say 70% raise, right? Something else that they are fighting back against are automation. They're saying that USMX is trying to fool their members with promises of workforce protection for semi-automation. They're saying that automation is going to take jobs, and they want their jobs. They say that these companies have already shown their true colors. They order equipment like RMGs and CRMGs. I'm not sure what that stands for. It's some sort of automated, robot kind of thing, right? And then when we stand firm on our position, this is the union speaking again. They order this equipment, the companies do, and the union stands firm. And then the companies cry about having spent tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, expecting us to feel sorry for them and negotiate an inferior deal. Well, that's not going to happen. We don't care how much they spend. A labor agreement should be worked out before they order any equipment. And that's true, right? I mean, the idea that you as a company could buy this, fancy pants, automated kind of stuff and then go to the table and be like, oh, well, we've already bought this stuff to automate away your jobs. So now you should agree. You have to agree to let us automate away your jobs because we've already bought the equipment to do it. Like, it just doesn't work that way, right? You can't expect the workers to accept that, and they're not accepting that. He said, "We don't care how much they spend. A labor agreement should be worked out before they order any equipment. That's obvious. The days of the gentleman's agreements are over. We want ironclad language, and we want the intent of that language in writing. Bottom line, the ILA does not support any kind of automation, including semi-automation. These companies cannot be trusted. They continue to sneak in automated programs and eliminate our clerical functions behind our backs. They better get ready for the biggest fight they've ever seen. We are done with them unilaterally implementing work processes and having zero respect for our members and their work functions." They're also concerned about cameras in the workplaces, saying that, the monitoring and all of this is creating a hostile work environment under the guise of safety. It's not actually about safety, and they point particularly to women being observed constantly by management and saying, there's kind of an implication of sexual harassment there. And then on the pensions, they say, we negotiated a national money purchase defined contribution plan in the current contract, and yes, the employers will be adding to that. But it's a constant battle to increase the defined benefit pension plan because our man-hour assessment is simply not enough money for us to manage our funds at the local level. Remember the first $5, Basically, we're trying to get them to increase the pension. And similar, similar discussions about health care. And they round out with a statement about their propaganda, the propaganda from the company. The union says this propaganda from USMX is exactly what we predicted weeks ago. It's also incredibly insulting that they think our members are not smart enough to see through their tactics. I don't believe they understand just how united this union is today. When the time comes, we will send out the most accurate and up-to-date information to our membership. In the meantime, disregard any information coming from management. These are the same people who circumvent your contract every day and drag their feet in the grievance and arbitration process. So don't trust them. As frustrated as we are with our employers, it's almost comical that they believe our members would fall for this nonsense. So that's where we are. Again, this would be an absolutely huge thing if this strike does happen on October 1st, about a week from today when I'm recording this. And so we're going to keep an eye on it, and obviously it's going to be a big topic of conversation when we come back the following week if there is a strike and if it is continuing. Because like I said, $5 billion a day is a huge hit to the economy, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on both sides to resolve a deal. And so it's really important that people, not give in to the propaganda that's going to be coming out from the companies. It's important to stand with the workers so that they get a fair share of the profits that they are creating. So that's the latest on really probably what's going to be the biggest news in labor in the South by the time that this airs. So we'll see how much of this is still relevant. Hopefully a lot of it is still relevant by the time that you hear it. We're going to take a break really quick, and when we come back, we're going to play a segment from friend of the show, Flash, in Ohio. Flash has a radio program in Ohio called America's Workforce. It is the only daily union radio program in the United States. It is a fantastic program, and if you listen to this show and you like it and you think that we give good information that you don't hear anywhere else, well, you could also hear at least some of it, a lot of it, on America's Workforce. It's a really good project. You should definitely be tuning in. And we have a segment that we're going to play that we asked if we could borrow a segment to help us fill our time. And we borrowed a segment on mental health. September is Construction Suicide Prevention Month, I think. And so they've been doing a lot of interviews around that on their show. And so we wanted to play one of those, because that's something, mental health is not something that we have talked a lot about on this program. And so we're excited to be able to bring you this clip from America's Workforce, and hopefully this is a topic that we will be revisiting in the future because it's really important. So we're going to take a break. We're going to be right back. We're going to be listening to Flash, and then we'll have some more stuff for you later on in the program. So stay tuned, folks. You are listening to the Valley Labor Report.
Benefit Architects has proudly supported union members and union-made products for over 35 years. If you are a federal employee and an AFGE member, you're eligible for hundreds of dollars in money-saving benefits, including group life insurance, dental insurance, and AFLAC insurance. Additionally, if you're a union member but don't work for the federal government, you can still qualify for several of these money-saving policies. So give Tate Hure a call at 256-215-6769 for details and to enroll. Again, that is Tate Heuer at 256-215-6769.
In Alabama, more than 200,000 of our friends and family members are living without health care coverage. Often folks can't stay healthy enough even to keep their jobs. We can fix this. It's time for us to find a way to close the health care coverage gap so that people can remain at work. Let's make this a priority. Let's close this gap and cover Alabama. To learn more and how you can help, visit coveralabama.org.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for the Valley Labor Report comes from the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers Union. Learn more by visiting www.ifpte.org.
Are you looking for a better future, a career that can have you set for life, and to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself? If you are, then consider a skilled trades apprenticeship with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. The work of IUPAT is all around us, from the industrial painters who work on the bridges to drywall finishers, floor coverers, the glazers who install the glass in our skylines, and so much more. With an IUPAT apprenticeship, you earn while you learn and receive benefits while learning the trade, including a pension. We provide world-class education free of charge. That's right, no student debt. Our starting salaries for apprentices that graduate is above the national median salary with benefits for entire families. And you have the flexibility to take your trade wherever you'd like in the country to work. IUPAT District Council 77 covers our entire region, so give Adam Booth a call at 205-603-3142 for more information. Again, that phone number is 205-603-3142. Come build a better future with us today and join IUPAT.
I'm attorney Tommy Sinyard. When you've been injured and need help, you need a lawyer who's with you.
Sinyard Law. You need attorneys always available to take care of you. Sinyard Law.
And keep you in the loop. It's your case. You need to know what's happening.
Sinyard Law. And never a charge to meet with us to evaluate your case. Sinyard Law.
A new firm, but an old name. One that will stay with you every step of the way.
Sinyard Law, the name with proven results.
Support for this program is provided by the International Association for Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama. Learn more at iamaw44.org.
Come all you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Labor creates all wealth should go to labor, and you are listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller. If you've got anything to add, you can give us a voicemail. You can send us a voicemail at 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can leave us a voicemail. We might respond to it on the next program. So like I said before we went to the break, we have got a great clip from America's Workforce with Ed Flash Ference about mental health in the construction industry. So gonna hand it over to Flash, and we will be right back.
And if you've been listening to the show this week, this is Construction Suicide Awareness Week. In fact, we kicked this off on Monday with Justin Asbill from Milwaukee Tools. Now, Justin is on the board of the Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention, their website. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of good resources there. PreventConstructionSuicide.com. All one word. PreventConstructionSuicide.com. We're going to start things off with Sonia Bowman. Now, Sonia is the executive director of this organization, which was started back in 2018. Their mission: to provide and disseminate information and resources, so important there, for suicide prevention and mental health promotion in construction with the goal of creating a zero suicide industry. And we've got some work to do because right now it's 3 to 4 times higher in the trades than the general population. We started this last year. We spent almost the entire month of September last year talking about this problem, and we're getting better. We're getting better, and she's going to talk about that. She comes from a reconstruction background, having spent over a decade in the commercial remodel and refresh and facilities maintenance space. So she's seen a lot going on in the industry. Now, given her understanding of how the industry works, as well as the mental health challenges faced by construction workers, she's the perfect person to talk about this. She's got a lot of experience. We're going to talk about how do we get our companies to embrace the conversation at a leadership level. That is a issue that we need to really get involved in. Listening. If you listen to Mike Hazard, we had him on 2 days ago. Mike hits the VIP program for the United Association, and he talked about how it's important for brothers and sisters on the job to listen. There's signs. There's signs when somebody is not doing well, not feeling well. Things may be going on in their personal life. They hold it in. Listen to them. Talk to them. And all the resources. And like I said, there are many. Boy, I tell you, that's a great website, preventconstructionsuicide.com. Let's go to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And joining us on our live line is Sonia Bowman. Sonia is the executive director of the Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention. We've had several conversations with her in the past year. Last year, for the month of September, we did a slew of shows on suicide because, well, September is Suicide Prevention Month. This week is Construction Suicide Awareness Week, and we kicked it off. And Sonia, you'll like this because on Monday we had one of your board members on the show, Justin Asbill from Milwaukee Tools. And yeah, what a great guy. What a great guy. In so many ways, too, because we still record the show at Ironworkers Local 17. They had a competition back in June, and he supplied a lot of the tools for that competition, and that's what Milwaukee does. Mm-hmm. But you know, he told us his story, and the stories are compelling, as you well know. But you know what? We get new listeners to the show each and every day. I'd like to get a little more background because I know you were in the industry. You were in, I see, like commercial remodeling, things like that. So you kind of saw what was going on. If you don't mind, let's start right there because there's a passion that drives people like you to talk about this issue. Can we get into that first?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say you're very lucky to have had Justin. His story is fantastic, and there's such a power in shared stories. So I'm excited that you had a chance to talk to him. As you said, my name is Sonia Bowman, and I do come from reconstruction. We call it, or construction light, whatever you want to term it, but remodels, refreshes, and facilities maintenance, strictly on the commercial side. And it really does allow me to see that construction has some unique risk factors associated with it. That sort of feeling that you're only as good as your last job, that you are the weight of, especially when you come from a small or mid-sized company, but that you have the weight of that project or sometimes even the company on your shoulders. There's a lot of things that make construction special in that way.
So when you saw what was going on in the industry, and I see the Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention, which is a 501c3, started not too long ago. It was 2018. Were you part of the nuts and bolts of this organization after what you saw in the industry?
I really wasn't. So I've been fortunate enough to be with the Alliance since May of 2023. But really, there's some amazing people that started the conversation. We grew out of the Construction Financial Management Association. And in 2015, there was an article published in their Building Profits magazine. And that article was written by none other than Dr. Sally Spencer-Thomas and Cal Beyer. And I know I believe you had both of them on your show. Mm-hmm. So you know what incredible people and pioneers in the conversation. They are. And they pointed out that there was a growing concern in the construction industry and that it had to do with mental health and suicide. And then not long after that, the CDC released its report in 2016. And that's when, there were summits around the country that CFMA hosted. And ultimately, we decided that this was a bigger problem than should be tucked up under another organization. And so CIASP formed in 2018, 100% volunteer. We have an incredible board that worked tirelessly to get CIASP launched and then continue to provide resources during COVID. And now we are excited to take it to the next level.
So let's talk about the impact here of what you're making at the Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention. And obviously, this being the week to call attention, what has been going on this week to amplify that and get that message out. Can you run that down for us?
Yes, absolutely. So we have on our website a tab specifically related to Suicide Prevention Month, and we have free resources there that our team developed that can be used on anyone else's social media. So we have a series there's 10 graphics there, 5 of which in both English and Spanish, and then 5 go with the word STAND, which is about our stand-up pledge to stand up to suicide prevention. We have the captioning and everything already there. So all you have to do is take the information and repost it, really driving the message through social media. We've got our toolbox talks there, and we're encouraging people to download those and use them as well. And our team has been everywhere this week, whether we're doing presentations in person, whether we're doing conversations like this, or whether we're doing webinars, but really making sure that we're getting out the reach. I think that the last time I checked the impact number, which was a day or two ago, so far this year, we have presented to over 10,000 people. And that doesn't include podcasts or articles that we've been a part of, but just real presentations to make sure that we're educating as many people as we can about this.
Okay, let's go back a year, if you don't mind, because you appeared on America's Workforce a year ago, and I don't know what you do when it comes to tracking data on the impact. That's one of my favorite words is impact, and that's workers have an impact in whatever they do on the job.
Sure.
They impact a construction site by the training that they get, the union training that they get. But how are we looking? Are we moving the needle in the right direction on this issue, Sonia?
So unfortunately, we're not. And suicide is still on the rise societally, and it's still on the rise from a construction standpoint. We have to do more to educate people on how to look for the warning signs in others and then how to have a conversation. And that's scary. It's really hard to think that you might have to say to someone, are you thinking about suicide? And until we're comfortable with that conversation, it's going to be really difficult to reverse the numbers.
So the toolkits that you're providing, we should mention that website again. It's preventconstructionsuicide.com. That's all one word, preventconstructionsuicide.com. You mentioned the warning signs. Can I get information on that website in the toolkit part?
Yes, we have downloadable resources, so you can order wallet cards for us to hand out on a job site. There are posters that you can download and put up on your job site, all of which are 100% free and available to anyone in the industry.
The problem in construction, it's still male dominated. And then you've got injuries on the job. You get opioids that are prescribed for those injuries. And then, one thing leads to another. And next thing you know, there's an attempt at suicide. I'm just wondering here, are we getting better? Well, first of all, the opioid situation that seems to have calmed down a little bit with prescriptions. What do you know about that?
So that's certainly not my area of expertise, but I can tell you that it is still challenging. There's some really interesting numbers that just came out of the CDC and then was put out by the Construction Institute for Research. They have some great information on this. Another great resource for addressing the opioid epidemic is Safe Project US, and really some valuable information there.
Okay, let's get back to the warning signs here, because I think it's important that, the unions, I think, are doing a pretty good job from what I've been gathering here. I want to know how the industry is handling this. Are members of companies saying, hey, you know what? And obviously they want to keep their membership. They want to keep their employees as healthy as possible. Are they doing more to prevent this from happening?
I think they are. I think there's certainly much more conversation happening than ever before. There's much more call to us to participate in trainings and education and panel discussions. There's lots of conversation in the media, and that I find hopeful. I find it hopeful that people are downloading and printing and sharing and conversations like this, because we really can make a difference. We just have to be comfortable talking about it and asking and looking out for each other.
Well, what comes to mind when what you just said is stigma. And mental health has been a stigma. I had this conversation just the other day with Mike Hazard at the Veterans and Piping program. You have a heart problem, okay, you go to the hospital or you go to the doctor. If you need bypass surgery or a stent, you get it done. When it comes to mental health, well, a little bit different story. Hey, you're crazy. What's wrong with you? Can't you handle it? And then the construction environment, you're a tough guy. So that seems to be a hard one to penetrate, isn't it?
It really is. Getting past the fact that we all have mental health. Mental health is something that you have, I have, everybody has, and we're not always in that thriving side. We're not always feeling our best, but we're also not always in that struggling side. And it swings back and forth every day. It's when you start to stay in that struggling side that a mental illness starts to become present. And how we look at mental illness matters. So we wouldn't say to someone who has cancer or cardiovascular disease that they're weak or they're selfish or that it's all in their head. So why would we say that about mental illness?
Good point. Sonia Bowman joining us on our live line today. She is the executive director of an organization called the Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention. Been around since 2018. Website is preventconstructionsuicide.com. Preventconstructionsuicide.com. A lot of good resources there. Let's go back to our live line. Our featured guest today, as you know by now, we've been doing a number of shows this week on suicide in the construction industry. It's Construction Suicide Awareness Week. And for the entire month of September, the focus is on suicide prevention. It's Suicide Prevention Month. Joining us today is Sonia Bowman, who is the executive director of the Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention. We're talking about all the resources that are available. It wasn't too long ago when they changed the number 988. If you perhaps hear of somebody that's thinking of taking his or her life, that is the number to call, or have that person call that. And there's some very qualified people to help that individual out. And I know it's getting a lot of traction here. Listening. I want to zero in on this. And I love what Mike Hazard, I don't know if you know Mike out of the VIP program, Veterans and Piping program. And he's got a big issue too, because veterans, high rate of suicide there.
Yeah,
they get into the trades, and my gosh, it gets amplified there. The takeaway from that show, and you know this because you've been in this field a long time, listen, and everybody, and this is really hard too, because we live in a very fast-paced world today. Some people, there's a lot of people working 2-3 jobs. And it's driving them crazy. You got family issues. You've got work issues. Obviously, in the trades, we've got injuries. We've got opioids. The listening part. How do we do better than that? I mean, that's part of what your alliance is preaching here. There's a way to listen and there's a way to listen. Can we talk about that?
I think it's really about connectiveness. And the more that we connect to each other, the more apt we are to listen. Take a minute to get to know your people. In relation to those warning signs, the things that you look for in them is changes in patterns of behavior. So you've really got to get to know your people to know that there is a change in that pattern. So it's not just listening, but it's looking and observing and, spending time with people, which any company can do, no matter what size they are, because it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost us anything to be connected to one another. It doesn't cost us anything to include everybody. It doesn't cost us anything to get to know our people. It really does take some training, though, because there's some soft skills involved in that. But that's a protective factor that we can put into our everyday interactions that really does save lives.
Okay, Sonia, for what you just said there, do you see companies approaching their employees on this issue as far as you said connectivity there? Is that starting to happen? Obviously, we have a problem here. You got to realize we have a problem, and then we got to figure out what to do with that problem. Is that happening, in your opinion?
I think slowly but surely, this conversation is starting to become a part of leadership's introduction to their teams. I think that mid-level managers are starting to ask for it more. We've gotten more requests than ever. I think that Justin would tell you he's gotten more requests than ever. And other leaders in this industry will say, people want to start to learn more about how we save our people. We know that our people are our biggest asset. We know that there's a problem in construction. So how do we start to change that? And how we start changing that is education. By sharing our stories, there's such power in a shared story, especially if it's done safely. And so the more that we have those requests and that we're able to fulfill them makes a difference. But then also having leadership say, I'm in therapy. It's okay to be in therapy. There was the news article that came out earlier this year that Justin was a part of. And another one of our board members, Kevin O'Shea from Shamrock Electric, also shared his story. And it's stories like that and the vulnerability of people that are just like them. If you can identify with someone and say, if that guy who's successful is doing this, I can do it too. Therapy is okay.
Yeah. Do you have, in your experience, anything that you could share with our listeners? I'm sure you heard a lot. You talk about this issue, and not just this week, but you do it 52 weeks a year. I mean, we got to bring these numbers down. Anything that you can relate to us?
Yeah, so I think that I just recently had an opportunity to speak to a very large construction company in Texas, and they did mental health champions. And so then in each of their 3 companies, they assigned people or asked people to volunteer to be a mental health champion. And then they brought them into Texas for 2 days and really went through a series of trainings with them, making sure that they knew what to look for. And that was everybody from office staff to superintendents to some of their laborers, and making sure that they know, when your coworkers are exhibiting this behavior, it's time to ask them. When you see these warning signs, here's how you start that conversation. People are starting to open up to this idea. Just like physical training, we have to have mental health training. I recently saw a statistic that says that, we all train our employees on CPR, but statistically, you're more likely to run into someone on a job site in a mental health crisis than you are a cardiac crisis.
Well, Sonia, we're going to button it up on that note here. Thank you so much for joining us on this this very sensitive topic, suicide prevention, especially in the construction industry. The website is preventconstructionsuicide.com. Sonia is the executive director of the Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention, and this is Construction Suicide Awareness Week, something we kicked off on Monday with the operating engineers. If you get an opportunity, Sonia, you might want to check out that show, awfpodcast.com. We had Chris Lallavie from the Operating Engineers Local 825 talking about the 3 times he attempted to take his own life. And he survived, obviously, and he's telling his story, and the stories are compelling. The stories can help other people. And I just want to wrap it up on the 988 line. I know that just started a couple of years ago. Probably a good place to go for anybody that wants maybe some counseling on this issue. Can you speak to that as we button this up?
Absolutely. 988 is a great resource. If you're in crisis or someone you care about is in crisis, or if you're worried about someone, you can reach out to 988, find out how they handle a crisis call. The great thing about 988 is that about 98% of the calls, they're able to get a commitment to safety from the person on the line, and no further intervention is needed. And you're right, they have taken a lot of calls since they started. I think the number I recently saw is about 20 million calls since the number went live in July of 2022.
Wow. My gosh, that just shows you how big a problem this is, no doubt. PreventConstructionSuicide.com is a website again. PreventConstructionSuicide.com. Tanya, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk more down the road, okay?
Thank you for having me.
In Alabama, more than 200,000 of our friends and neighbors are living without health care coverage. Often folks can't stay healthy enough to keep their jobs. We need to fix this. Let's close the health care coverage gap. To learn more, visit coveralabama.org.
Support for this program also comes from the Iron Workers, Local 477. So if you are looking for contractors with lower than average EMR and TRIR, they tell me that if you need to know what those mean, then you will. Or if you need to supplement a workforce at any level for any amount of time, short or long term, if you need iron workers that come trained and certified at no extra cost, or if you need workers from superintendent down to general laborer, and you're looking to start work on a project, or you're unhappy with your current contractor situation, you need to call my friend Jeb Miles with the Ironworkers Local 477. They only work with the best in the business, vetted contractors, and can do all kinds of jobs, from roofing to steel and bridge erection, from welding to heavy rigging, from structural repairs to machinery alignment, and much more. They supply manpower on 4 of the 5 largest projects in North Alabama, so you know they're legit. If you need good quality, safe, efficient, diligent, and knowledgeable workers on your job, then you need the Ironworkers Local 477. Call Jeb Miles at 256-383-3334 or via email at local477@bellsouth.net, and make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Valley Labor Report.
We're the nurses, firefighters, and claims representatives that help keep our government services running. We respond to natural disasters. We care for our nation's veterans, and we investigate discrimination in the workplace. We are federal and D.C. government workers, and we are proud to serve the American people. Working in more than 70 agencies across the government, we know we can fulfill our mission because our union has our back. Learn more at afge.org. Paid for by the American Federation of Government Employees, AFL-CIO.
The Laborers International Union of North America, Local 366, is proudly recruiting North Alabama workers to work construction and nuclear plant maintenance. If you're interested, please contact Donna at their training center to start the process. That phone number is 256-415-7452. Again, that phone number is 256-415-7452. No experience is needed. Free training is offered, but you must be able to pass a background check and a drug test. Local hiring that grows our community with good-paying jobs that have benefits is their mission. Live better, work union, Local 366, feel the power.
Support for this program also comes from the Mid-South Council of Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. Learn more at rwdsu.info.
I'm attorney Tommy Sinyard. When you've been injured and need help, you need a lawyer who's with you.
Sinyard Law. You need attorneys always available to take care of you. Sinyard Law.
And keep you in the loop. It's your case. You need to know what's happening.
Sinyard Law. And never a charge to meet with us to evaluate your case. Sinyard Law.
A new firm, but an old name. One that will stay with you every step of the way.
Sinyard Law. The name with proven results.
Since 1889, the National Association of Letter Carriers has protected the rights of city carriers as they deliver the mail and offer support for their community. The Alabama State Association of Letter Carriers makes their legislative voices heard when it comes to issues involving the U.S. Postal Service and the working members of the union. The National Association of Letter Carriers has been longtime supporters of the Muscular Dystrophy Association and the Stamp Out Hunger Food Drive. This message is sponsored by the Alabama Association of Letter Carriers. To learn more, visit NALC.org.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to
Alabama's only union talk radio show. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller. If you've got anything to add, you can leave us a voicemail. The phone number is 844-899-8857. That phone number is 844-899-TVLR. We appreciate everybody tuning in today. We did have the municipal runoff last week, and we're going to be giving you some more analysis the next time that we are live. But suffice to say, we are very happy that Michelle Watkins won in the runoff election. She was endorsed by the North Alabama Area Labor Council, by AFGE, and by CWA. So lots of union support for Michelle, and we're really excited to work with her once she gets in office. I believe that she's going to be a very good representative for District 1 in Huntsville. We have also had some really good. We just finished a clip from friend of the show, Ed Flash Ferentz. It's a really good clip about suicide awareness and mental health and that kind of stuff. So hope y'all were able to get something out of that. We really appreciate Flash and America's Workforce for letting us use that segment for our show. And I wanted to talk to you about, give you the latest on what's been going on with the UAW. Of course, we know that, the UAW has really been on the move in a way that not many other unions have. In just a year ago, they finished their historic stand-up strike. They won record-breaking contracts at the big three automotive manufacturing companies in the United States. They won a lot in their contracts, including, importantly, commitments on investments and product placement in the United States. And even more importantly than that, they won the right to enforce those product commitments with a strike if necessary. And so this is a really huge thing that the UAW has not won in a contract before, I don't think. And so the ability to enforce the contract, especially these incredibly crucial demands of product placement in the United States, being able to enforce that with a strike is incredibly important, I think, to the continued life of the UAW and American manufacturing. So they won that along with a lot of other stuff in the contract. If you want to take a look at, in more detail at what they won in the contract, you can go back and look at our other coverage. But I say that, I mentioned those parts of the contract specifically because that is what is in dispute right now. Stellantis is saying that they are not going to honor the commitments that they made to the United Auto Workers, to auto workers all across the country, and to America itself, which has invested through tax dollars billions of dollars into this company. Stellantis is saying that no, we are not going to reopen Belvidere per the contract that we signed last year. We are not going to open a new parts distribution facility in Belvidere, Illinois. And we are actually, in addition to not doing that investment, we're going to move the current production of the Dodge Durango to Canada instead of the United States. And so Stellantis is really trying to do everything that they can to not live up to the commitments that they made to the United Auto Workers and to the United States working class. And so the UAW is fighting back. They're preparing their members for what is looking increasingly like the inevitability of striking against Stellantis to enforce this deal. And last week, Shawn Fain had one of his signature live streams informing the membership and the rest of the public about what's going on and what the UAW intends to do. And he prefaces it with, kind of reminding people of the background of the last 40 years of really economic decimation of working people by the owning class, by business people, by people like Carlos Tavares, who is now citing quote-unquote market conditions as the reason that Stellantis is not going to be keeping up its part of the contract, even as he gave himself a 56% raise, even as they are going to be spending $8 billion to enrich their shareholders, $5 billion on stock buybacks, and $3 billion on shareholder dividends over just the next year. Right? Just the next year, even as they're saying the market conditions are such that we cannot reopen Belvedere. Okay, it's a bunch of BS, and Shawn Fain does a really good job of prefacing his conversation about this specific instance of corporate greed with the history of corporate greed in this country. So I wanted to share it with you because it's really good, as it always is with Shawn Fain. This is heat.
The story of the past 40 years is a one-sided class war waged by the billionaire class against working families. Working class people's share of the pie, our quality of life, and even life expectancy has fallen, while billionaires and corporate executives have gotten richer and more powerful. They do it in all kinds of ways. They rig the economy, they rig the political system, they rig the legal system, they attacked our unions and turned us against one another, and in manufacturing, they use the most brutal tool of all, plant closures. The result has been the death of the American dream. Generations of Americans fought tooth and nail to turn manufacturing jobs into good union jobs. 100 years ago, massive factories sprouted up across this country, and people like my grandparents fought like hell to turn those factory towns into places where they were proud to raise their families. Places like my hometown, Kokomo, Indiana, became somewhere a working class family could live a decent life on a union contract. In the past 40 years, corporate America has pulled the rug out from under those communities. They close the plants, ship the jobs overseas, and then import the product back to America, which remains the most lucrative consumer market on earth. We have 40 years of history showing that corporate America is more than happy to destroy communities, destroy lives, and destroy families for an extra percentage point on their profit margin. And if that wasn't enough, corporate America turns around and blames the devastation they have caused on the American worker. They blame us for daring to ask for a living wage, for health care, for a secure retirement, and the ability to spend some time with our family. They do this in hard times, kicking working class people while we're down. But corporations are also more than happy to do this in good times, and Wall Street rewards them for it. Over the past 25 years, Stellantis has closed or sold or idled 18 manufacturing facilities, killing tens of thousands of jobs and decimating communities and ripping families apart. That happened despite the billions in taxpayer dollars our country has given to this company. That happened despite massive concessions in our union contracts over the years. And that happened despite record profits for the past decade. They closed plants when we worked together with the company. And they've closed plants when we fought back. And every time, they blame the auto worker. But we know the truth. The truth is that every plant closure is a decision of corporate executives. Communities were decimated so an executive could buy another mansion. Families were ripped apart so rich shareholders could buy another yacht.
And it's really difficult, I think, to disagree with his assessment of the last 40 years, especially if you know anything about history. And so it's really important to remember that backdrop, right? that this stuff is not just happening just because it has to happen. People are making the decision to do this to other people, right? And so the UAW is not going to be standing for it anymore, and they're going to be fighting back. And now, just like with even though Shawn Fain just laid out for you, they're closing plants when times are bad, they're closing plants when times are good, they're doing it just to increase their profits, right? It's not anything about the market conditions or whether or not it's affordable, whether they can do it. But he does take pains to specifically address the current quote-unquote market conditions and the ability of Stellantis to follow through on their investment. And he specifically attacks Stellantis's position that, we just don't have the money. The contracts are too expensive. We can't pay the wages, and we can't do the investment that the UAW wants us to do, that we agreed to do, that we signed on the dotted line saying that we would do. Now, we just can't do it anymore. We could not foresee how much this was going to cost, so we can't do it anymore. Woe is us, but we're still going to do all of this other stuff. Listen to Shawn Fain.
Stellantis wants everyone to believe they simply can't afford to keep their commitments to American auto workers. But let's be clear. Stellantis is one of the most profitable auto companies in the world, and they are currently raking in billions in profits. Stellantis has generated more than $1.3 trillion in revenue over the last decade, and they've made more than $115 billion in profits over the last decade. Over the last 3 years, Stellantis has made record profits with margins among the highest in the industry. So Stellantis is rolling in the dough. They have so much money that they've committed to spending $3 billion on stock buybacks this year alone, on top of $5 billion more on shareholder dividends. They make their money off of our plants in America. They make their money selling to our market in America off of our work as UAW auto workers. The problem isn't that Stellantis workers are making too much. The problem is that no amount of profit for Stellantis executives like Carlos Tavares will ever be enough.
And that's exactly right. And so the UAW is preparing its membership to strike if necessary to get Stellantis to honor their commitments. They have already begun the grievance process to get this started, and so we will see what happens. Obviously, we're going to be following this very closely. This is going to be another big thing for the UAW, but Stellantis is not the only big three auto manufacturer that they have had to fight to get them to do what's right. They've also had a big fight with Ford, where the UAW issued a strike deadline against Ford of last Thursday, of just a couple of days ago, if local contract issues were not resolved. They said that Ford Motor Company failed to reach a local agreement with UAW Local 600, the tool and die unit at the Rouge Complex, more than a year past the contract deadline. And so UAW Vice President Chuck Browning received authorization from Shawn Fain to set a strike deadline of 11:59 p.m. Wednesday, September 25th. The core issues in the unit's local negotiations are job security, wage parity for skilled trades, and work rules. And, this is because that in addition to UAW's national contracts, UAW members negotiate local agreements around plant-specific issues at each facility. And just last week, right ahead of the strike deadline, the UAW announced that they had reached a tentative agreement. They said a deal was secured that strengthens job security by protecting against the impacts of advancements in 3D printing, along with establishing a process to secure additional die work as required. Additionally, the UAW achieved an agreement to eliminate the wage disparity for skilled trades, ensuring fair and equal pay across the board. Now, the roughly 500 UAW members at the Dearborn facility will review the details of the agreement and hold a ratification ratification vote in the coming days. If ratified, the agreement will set a new standard for skilled trades at Ford. The members at the Rouge Complex understand the power of strength in numbers, said UAW Vice President Chuck Browning. They stuck together and showed Ford that they were willing to stand up if necessary to win what they deserve. And so really exciting stuff from the UAW there, and winning at Ford, and let's hope they win at Stellantis. That's all that I had for the UAW update. I'm going to give it over to Adam for to round us out of the first half of the show.
Hey, y'all. Adam Keller here. Sorry I couldn't be with you live on Saturday, September 28th, but I'll be in Montgomery for the Alabama Arise annual meeting. Alabama Arise is a statewide, nonprofit, nonpartisan coalition fighting for public policies to improve the lives of Alabamians who are marginalized by poverty. The coalition includes over 1,700 individual members alongside some 150 or so member groups, including churches and faith-based groups, as well as other nonprofit and community groups, and a growing number of labor organizations. The annual meeting is the chance for member groups to present new issue proposals to the membership, who then vote on the annual agenda. This year, there won't be completely new issues to vote on, but rather ranking sub-priorities for each issue. The current agenda includes adequate state budgets for education, healthcare, childcare, and other human services, which includes leading the Hunger-Free Alabama Coalition, working on expanding universal school meals and summer EBT funding, as well as the Cover Alabama Coalition, leading the fight to expand Medicaid. As you may know, Alabama is one of only 10 states to not yet expand Medicaid. Tax reform is another permanent priority for Arise, including elimination of the regressive sales tax on groceries. Next is criminal justice reform, including legislation to reform punitive sentencing laws and to reduce the over-reliance on exorbitant fines and fees, as well as reforming, if not outright eliminating, the death penalty. Other priorities are voting rights, public transportation, and comprehensive maternal and infant health care investments. Now, all of these priorities impact all of us, though disproportionately poor and working class folks, especially racial minorities. Racial equity and worker power are two major elements to this agenda, which, if enacted, would, in my opinion, significantly improve the quality of life for everyday people in this state. Arise supports worker power by advancing these policies, which will reduce poverty and uplift working class folks. And they do that through policy analysis, statewide organizing, and citizen advocacy. Relying on the people power of membership, Arise is an important voice for working people in the state capital of Montgomery. While other states have big labor federations with political staff and other resources to advocate for labor in the state house, down here we are working with very limited resources in Alabama, which makes the work of Alabama Arise that much more important. All union members in this state should join Alabama Arise. Join the coalition. Let's join the forces of organized labor with the community coalition of Arise to build the kind of people power we need to win the kind of state we deserve. In this year's legislative session, Arise fought to toughen rather than weaken child labor laws. Arise was a leading voice in the ultimately unsuccessful fight to stop SB 231, the anti-union bill that strips state incentives from companies that voluntarily recognize unions. Arise is advocating for paid parental leave as a benefit for all educators and other state employees. And on the subject of public education, Arise is fighting for fully and equitably funded public schools and against harmful voucher and privatization schemes. In fact, while many education groups sadly remained officially neutral on the latest scheme known as the Choose Act, Arise stood strong and testified against it. And it isn't just legislatively that Arise is supporting labor. The State of Working Alabama, released in 2023, was a deep dive report into pay inequities and working conditions in Alabama's auto industry. No doubt this research has been helpful for the UAW, United Auto Workers, as they seek to organize auto workers here in the state. I'm proud to say that Arise is a union shop. When the staff organized with Communications Workers of America, CWA 3908, Arise leadership voluntarily recognized the union. Kudos to the leadership for not just practicing what they preach, but demonstrating to other employers that you don't have to fight your employees when they exercise their legal and human rights to organize collectively on the job. But despite this good work, we need to be bigger and stronger. While Arise generated thousands of legislative contacts this year, it wasn't enough to stop some really bad legislation. There were wins, such as securing funding for summer EBT in 2025, a federal program that keeps poor kids fed during the summer months when school isn't in session, and that's a huge victory. But listeners of this program are probably well aware of how bad the 2024 legislative session was for everyday people in Alabama. We have to have many more folks engaged. We have to have a lot more folks pressuring their lawmakers. We have to have a much bigger coalition if we are to make progress against the wealthy, powerful interests who so dominate our state politics. Throughout my dozen or so years in politics and activism, I've been a proud member of Alabama Arise. I'm proud to say our North Alabama Area Labor Council is a member group. If you want to see this state move forward, if you want to see better policies for the majority of us who are poor and working folks, if you want to see people power that can push back against exploitation and greed and bigotry, then I encourage you to get involved with Alabama Arise. You can join as an individual with a donation of any amount, and then you'll not only be eligible to vote on the annual agenda, you'll be kept informed with the newsletter, daily digest, and more. Your organization, whether it's your union local or your labor council, church, retiree chapter, etc., they can join the coalition as a member group. You can follow Alabama Arise on social media and invite them to speak at your meetings. And of course, you can spread the word to your friends, family, coworkers, and the rest of your network. Workers' rights are human rights. Labor unions uplift workers and our communities. When labor works together with Arise, we can have a louder voice in Montgomery for working class Alabamians. Working together, we can fight for an Alabama where all people have resources and opportunities to reach their potential to live happy, productive lives. Go to alarise.org to find out more information and to join and get involved. All right, folks, as we're wrapping up here on the radio, just a few reminders and plugs for you. Don't forget, we will be on the air for overtime after we go off the air on the radio. That overtime is the second half of the program, of course. We got some good stuff lined up for you. Again, today's episode, a little different. Jacob and I are both out of town, so we had to do some pre-taped segments. We had to borrow some stuff this week. But we're really looking forward to next week. It's going to be a great episode. We've got so much to catch up on. We'll be reacting to the District 1 runoff election in Huntsville. We'll be talking about some of the latest news with UAW, the longshore strike, potentially, and all sorts of other things. So definitely stay tuned next week. We'll be live back in the studio next Saturday. In the meantime, go to labornotes.org/events for free and low-cost trainings. I can't recommend it enough that you check out Labor Notes trainings. If you are a union member, or if you want to be a union member, go to labornotes.org/events. On October 1st, they have a workshop called What to Do When Your Union Breaks Your Heart. And that is a really good workshop. Unfortunately, it's one that you may have to attend at some point in your life. But we all run into setbacks in these journeys in our organizations. And it's important to know how to respond to those setbacks and how to actually, break through that and push forward. Speaking of Labor Notes, registration is live for the Alabama Troublemaker School on Saturday, October 19th in Birmingham. You do not want to miss this. If you are in driving distance of Birmingham, you should definitely check out the Alabama Troublemaker School. There's going to be some great panels, some great training, and some great networking. In 2022, we had over 120 folks that showed up from various states across the South, from all sorts of different unions and industries. And it was a great opportunity to, congregate fellow troublemakers here in the South who are trying to put the movement back in the labor movement. So again, Alabama Troublemaker School on Saturday, October 19th in Birmingham. You can go to labornotes.org/events to register. And don't forget to talk to your union local, talk to your president, talk to your labor council, see if y'all can send some people. If you have some room in your budget, your local should definitely send some folks to the Troublemaker School. It's going to be really great training, especially if you have any new stewards or new members who are looking to get engaged, or if you've been a member for a while, but you just want to sharpen your skills or maybe just meet some cool people. It will definitely be worth the cost of admission and worth your time. So if you're not on our email list at tvlr.fm, definitely sign up for that so you can stay up to date on the Valley Labor Report and our work to highlight the labor movement here in the Tennessee Valley and across the South. We do have 2 newsletters, Last Week in Southern Labor as well as Boss Watch. So you can get those in your inbox every week. Of course, you can check out our merch. We have some really cool merch out there on our shop. TVLR.fm. Again, check that out. You can, of course, give us a donation. We are a grassroots media project. We rely on donations and sponsorships to, run this program, to pay for our radio time, our studio time, pay for the labor behind the scenes. So if you are so inclined, if you can donate, again, go to tvlr.fm. Would be much appreciated. You can leave us a voicemail throughout the week, 844-899-TVLR. That's 844-899-8857. Just call that number, leave us a voicemail throughout the week, and we may play it on the next episode. We really enjoy getting voicemails, and so if you have any thoughts you want to share about any of the things that we talked about today or things we didn't talk about today, but that's on your mind, feel free to give us a call. Leave us a message, 844-899-TVLR. And finally, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. That stuff really does help your engagement online, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, or the podcast apps. It really does help. So, give us a 5-star review, like the stream, share the video, make sure you subscribe to our channels and our pages. All of that really does make a difference, and we really appreciate it. We are like 150 people away from 10,000 subscriptions on YouTube, which would be really cool to hit that number and break 10,000. So if you know any folks, or if you're listening and you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, definitely do that when you get a chance. So with all that, we'll be heading into overtime. Again, you can stay tuned online, and of course, find us as a podcast in a couple of days. Really appreciate everyone listening. Appreciate all your support. Thank you for believing in a stronger labor movement and a independent media to support this labor movement. All power to the workers. Solidarity, y'all.
welcome back. You are still listening to the Valley Labor Report. We are now in the second half of the program, the half that we call overtime. We've got a really great second half of the program lined up for you. Going to be going into some updates on the Boeing strike. Also going to be bringing you another segment from America's Workforce about Nashville's pre-apprenticeship program. Really exciting stuff, and hoping that we can do some copycat stuff here in Huntsville. Also have a recorded interview with Alexander Edward of Minion Death Cult about the Teamsters endorsement. We had a really fun conversation. You should definitely check out his podcast. It's a really good one. So without further ado, let's jump right into the Boeing update. As you know, 32,000 machinists at Boeing in the Pacific Northwest are on strike because they voted down a contract offer, a tentative agreement that the union made with Boeing. The members voted it down by 96%, and they voted by 97% to strike. So, really, you almost can't get more overwhelming than that. The offer was 25% pay increase over 4 years, but they took out the annual bonuses that were between 3 and 6%. So the actual raises, according to the workers, were really more like 6 to 12% over 4 years when you account for the fact that the bonuses were taken out. So obviously that was not acceptable to the 32,000 Boeing machinists, and so they voted it down. They have now been on strike for about 2 weeks. We had a conversation last weekend with the communications lead for the engineers union at Boeing in the Pacific Northwest, representing some 16,000 engineers. And we talked about how that union is supporting the machinists to the greatest extent possible. Really enjoyed that conversation. And so the latest on the Boeing situation is that Boeing issued supposedly their last best and final offer. Their last best and final offer to the Boeing machinists. And it was a little bit better. They doubled the ratification bonus from $3,000 to $6,000. They increased the general wage increase to 30% from 25%. They also added back the annual bonuses, so it's a true 30% increase in pay. And they also reinstated the Aerospace Machinists Performance Program bonus. No, that's the bonus program that I was talking about earlier. I apologize. So that was the supposed last, best, and final offer, and they gave that to the machinists on Tuesday or Wednesday and said they had to take it or leave it by Friday, like 48 hours later. And so obviously the union was like, okay, so for one, They took it to the membership and did kind of a survey, and the survey that they got from the membership back was overwhelmingly, this is still not good enough. So for one, it was still not good enough. For two, the members and the union leadership felt like it was a slap in the face because they gave the last, best, and final offer through the press, not through the union's negotiating committee. They did not negotiate this offer. It was just put out there in the press. So the membership and the union leadership really feel like that was a slap in the face because they value the collective bargaining process and things like that. So that did not make the striking machinists happy. And, it did not address the longstanding issues. It just simply was not enough. And also the idea that you're going to say take it or leave it by Friday, like 48, 72 hours later, was also something that was just actually logistically not possible, right? Think about having to organize a vote of 32,000 people in 48 hours. That's just really a difficult thing to do. And so it was not smart of Boeing to try to set that deadline and say this was the last, best, and final. Well, needless to say, it was not actually the last, best, and final offer. They extended the date to which they could agree to that contract, to that tentative offer, But when the union was very clear that, no, we're not even going to put this up for an official vote, we're not going to waste our time with it, our members don't accept it, Boeing is now at the table again. As of yesterday, they did begin negotiating with Boeing again with the help of a federal mediator. And so, obviously, it's not actually the last, best, and final offer because they're back at the negotiating table. So we will see what the union is able to bring back. I know that one of the demands of the membership was a 40% raise over 3 years, right? So a 30% raise over 4 years is just that's pretty far off, and a reinstatement of the pension. People are really upset about the fact that the pension was taken away. And if you go back and listen to our interview with John Voss from 2 weeks ago, you can see that it was really the way that the pension was taken was really dirty. Like, it was not, it was not a fair vote, and even with the unfairness of the vote, it was very, very close. So people are not happy about that, and they're also, making sure to emphasize in their communications that, the idea of a 30% wage increase in 4 years, that's progress, but the media overlooks in a lot of their stories how it doesn't erase the fact that over the past decade, Machinist Union members at Boeing have only received an 8% wage increase over the last 10 years, right? The union says, in a time of record inflation and rise in the cost of living in one of the most expensive regions in the country, that 8% was not enough. Our members had to stretch their pay to cover retirement, health care, and basic living costs. So just really, frustrating kind of stuff here. The last update that they had was put out on the day that I'm recording this, which is Thursday, September 26th. They said, we're holding the line in Auburn and showing West Auburn High School, obviously not Auburn, Alabama, right? Showing West Auburn High School students what it means to be union. Tomorrow, your union negotiating committee in Boeing will resume mediated talks with the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Services. This is another vital opportunity for your union to address the issues that matter most to our members. As always, the IAM 751 doesn't bargain through the press. The only way to get our members back to work is through meaningful negotiations. Our strike represents more than just the fight of 751 members. It's about our families and our communities as well. We've been working for 10 years, establishing our leverage, building solidarity on the shop floor, and standing strong to fight for a better tomorrow. The company now has the chance to propose an agreement worthy of the workforce that powers its success. Stay resolute. Don't let anyone shake the bravery and unity you've shown the world. One day longer, one day stronger. That's what it takes in unity, your union negotiating committee. So there you go. That is the latest on the Boeing negotiations. They're back at the bargaining table with the company. The last, best, and final was not good enough for their members, and it's going to take more than that to get the machinists in the Pacific Northwest back to work. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to the segment that we pulled, again, with permission from America's Workforce with Ed Flash Ferentz, that he recorded with the president of the Nashville Central Labor Council about their Music City Construction Careers program. It's a really exciting program, a pre-apprenticeship program with the building trades in Nashville, and it's really exciting. I'm just going to let Vonda and Flash tell you about it. So hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Appreciate you listening. Here's Flash.
We're going to be joined by Sam Petchalot and Vonda McDaniel. Sam is the executive director of an organization called Music City Construction Careers, and Vonda serves as president of Music City Construction Careers, which is based in Nashville, Tennessee. Website, musiccitymc3.org, musiccitymc3.org. Sam, as I indicated, is the executive director. He began his career as an organizing intern with the service employees. That would be Local 205. Then later, He served as a deputy field organizer for the Bernie Sanders campaign back in 2020. He also became a campaign coordinator for the Central Labor Council of Middle Tennessee in 2020. And then last year, he was appointed executive director to MC3. And since that time, Sam has supported more than 220 individuals through their apprenticeship readiness program, helping them pursue registered union apprenticeships in the skilled construction trades. And we like that. Now, Vonda will chime in on this because she is president of Music City Construction Careers, and she also serves as president of the Central Labor Council in Middle Tennessee. Now, the South, you have to understand this. The South, well, let me put it this way. Many of the governors, lawmakers don't like unions. And as a result, there's very low union density in the South. Tennessee is no exception. In fact, a couple of years ago, they enshrined right to work into their state constitution. Well, there's a lot of building going on in Nashville. They need people in the trades, and that's where Music City comes in. The goal for the organization is to educate those who join the program on the importance of unions for working families and what it means to be an actively involved union member and leader. MC3 provides education on how unions operate, the significance of apprenticeship programs, and why it is crucial for both individual workers and unions to engage in the political process. How many times have I said this on the show? Elections matter. So you got an educated electorate, and good things can happen for workers. That's what it's all about. We have two guests joining us on our live line today, featured guests, and we're going to start off with Sam Petchalot. Now, Sam is the executive director of a very cool organization, Music City Construction Careers. The website is musiccitymc3.org, and we'll be joined with Vonda McDaniel, who is the president of Music City. Sam, I'm going to start with you. I was reading earlier that you were an organizing intern with SEIU Local 205 and then served as a deputy field organizer for the Bernie Sanders 2020 campaign. That had to be a fun ride for you. Well, talk to me about your entry into organized labor. You know, labor tries to do good things for all workers. I say unions lift all boats. And obviously, you were very well grounded there with Bernie Sanders. Talk to me about that time and how you, and we'll get into Music City Construction Careers here in a minute. So go ahead, my brother.
Thanks, Flash. Yeah, it's been a great few years. Everything you described happened in the last 5 years or so. And so at the time, I was actually in school for social work, which I had kind of ended up in because I knew I wanted to do something positive in the world, and I had not had luck finding an opportunity yet to work in the labor movement. But luckily, I started doing the work of an organizer, which is just gathering the people I knew and trying to make connections. So I was able to plug my social work program into a opportunity, an internship with SEIU Local 205, and then SEIU 205 fully supported me going out and working on the campaign trail with Bernie 2020 as well. And it really was an interesting time synthesizing the work of social work and of labor organizing and of political organizing, and really seeing how all those threads come together from hitting the pavement at our local schools in Nashville, from learning about accounting and other fun nonprofit management stuff in school, and then going out and trudging through 3 feet of snow in Des Moines, Iowa in February. So it was a wonderful time, and I'm really glad that it all led to what I'm doing today, which is supporting working people in Nashville.
Well, talk to me about this apprenticeship readiness program that just started. I think that's quite fascinating. Music City Construction Careers. Now, is this your idea or what?
I can't take credit for that. That was President McDaniel's sort of idea, or at least who got the ball rolling with some other people. I came in about a year after the project had been started and sort of took the helm from another organizer who, along with Vonda, had gotten it up and running. But yeah, we are just an organization that kind of has a two-pronged approach to developing workforce development programming that not only sees people as cogs in an economic machine, although we do want to upskill people and get them better opportunities that they can support themselves and their families on. But I like to say we're the only workforce development program in Nashville that is also going to give you an education on how to be a union member and the importance of unions as the foundation of a strong career. And so it's political education, it's labor organizing, and it's upskilling and helping people find career opportunities, kind of all rolled into one.
Boy, anything you can do to boost unions in Tennessee, I'm all for it, because that's tough. It's really tough. And thankfully, we saw a turnaround there at the Chattanooga UAW facility over there. Well, soon to be a UAW facility. But that was a tough fight at Volkswagen. Took 3 times in 10 years. So things are starting to change. Vonda, I want to go to you. Vonda McDaniel is the president of Music City Construction Careers. Now, Sam said this was your idea. Talk to me. Well, first, a little bit more background on yourself, and you can work up to how this was a brainchild of yours. Go ahead, Vonda.
So I've been in the labor movement for 32 years, and it's been an interesting journey. I started on the shop floor of the Bridgestone Firestone plant in Laverne, Tennessee, and kind of worked my way through the local union there. But I was always working with the Central Labor Council. So I was the secretary of the Central Labor Council for about 15 years and was elected president in 2013 of the Central Labor Council. The Central Labor Council, for folks that aren't really familiar with the structure of the AFL-CIO, is the ground team. We are the folks in communities that are the face of labor throughout the country. And so the idea about an apprenticeship readiness program was not necessarily my brainchild, but it was an adopted model that was proven to work already throughout the country. But Music City Construction Careers has grown exponentially since 2019. And we just last week graduated a class of 31 new folks ready to go into apprenticeship programs in the 15 trades that we work with. And so we are added to a pipeline in Nashville that we felt had been missing for too long, and that is a connection to the union skilled trade programs for women, people of color, underrepresented communities. Mm-hmm. And we're really proud of the work that we've been able to do.
Well, you should be. And that's pretty much the mission of NABTU right now, the North American Building Trades Unions. And they want to make sure that the people that are working in the trades mirror America. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, it's important that we go in that direction. And it's been a struggle, but we're making some progress here. Vonda, I want to stay with you here a little bit. Talk to me about how this is working. Are you going into the high schools? Are you going into the community, maybe boys and girls clubs? I'm just wondering where all the recruitment begins for Music City Construction Careers. And I love that title. That is the coolest title, Music City Construction Careers. How are you doing it all?
So it's a combination of things. We are building community partnerships with faith organizations, with community-based organizations that are connecting folks to our program. Last year, for the first year, the program was able to have a pilot in one of the high schools, Maplewood High School, with a group of about, I think it started out at about 20, ended up graduating 15. But I think that it's a pilot that is really worth duplicating. I'm a lifelong Nashvilleian, and way back when I went to McGavock High School, we had shop classes and trade classes in the high school because it was the largest vocational high school in the state. But once we went to these career tracks, the trade pipeline kind of got dismantled a little bit. So that's where we come in to rebuild it.
Mm-hmm. Now, Sam, I've got some relatives that live in that area in Nashville, and all I am hearing is they're building like crazy, and the population is exploding down there. Obviously, there's a need for people in the trades. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, there's a huge need, Flash, and that's really what this program is at the center of, is making connections. You've got tremendous economic development happening in Nashville, which is a nerdy way of saying that there's a crane on every corner and traffic cones that you have to dodge because they're building new stuff everywhere. You'll hear Nashvillians complain about it in our polite Southern passive-aggressive ways constantly, but what that means is jobs and opportunity. And that was really the thinking behind this program. We have an economy, a construction economy that does not have enough people, and at the same time, we have one of the most gentrified cities in the country, where there are scores and scores of Nashvillians who have lived here their whole lives that are being left out of those opportunities. And that's an obvious disconnect when you have tons of money pouring in, great jobs pouring in, but at the same time, poverty and people not being able to access the growth that should be a positive thing. So that's really where this program comes in, to build that bridge between those two needs and build something that can support both needs simultaneously.
One of my favorite phrases we use on the show, it's the pathway to the middle class, when you think about it. And when you learn a trade, nobody can take that away from you. I mean, that's yours for life. I mean, there's always going to be work out there. I mean, either building new construction or rehabbing old buildings, and a lot of that is going on right now. I'm sure a ton of that is happening in Tennessee. Joining us on our live line, we have two individuals. Sam Petchalot, that's the person you just heard. Sam's the executive director of Music City Construction Careers, and he's joined by Vonda McDaniel, who is the president of that organization. Here's the website. It's musiccitymc3.org. Let's go back down to Nashville, Tennessee, and talk about Music City Construction Careers. The website is musiccitymc3.org. We have two guests joining us on our live line today. Sam Petchalot, who serves as executive director of Music City Construction Careers, and he's being joined by Vonda McDaniel, who serves as president. She's also involved with the Central Labor Council in Middle Tennessee. I want to talk about building unions in Tennessee. I know Tennessee is one state where they enshrined right to work in the Constitution for reasons that I do not understand. It's already a right to work state. That's another conversation. Sam, I want to go back to you because I'm hearing some good feedback from your graduates. And if you want to build a union, you want to build numbers, it's almost like you got to use the people that felt and worked the union difference, that know now what the union did for them. Their wages went up, their benefits went up, they're able to buy a car, a home. And that's what America is all about. We want to go in that direction. Talk to me about some of the, and I see you got a lot of graduates now that from Music City Construction Careers. Talk to me about some of the feedback you're getting, Sam.
Yeah, Flash. So it's not at all uncommon as we follow up with our graduates to kind of hear about how things have been going for them since they completed our training program, to hear some really amazing stories, really things that some people might take for granted, things like starting a savings account, buying a vehicle. We are just starting to see our first students topping out, which is a term for those outside of the trades. That is when you complete an apprenticeship program, which is a 4 to 5 year process. And so we are just on the cusp of our 5-year birthday as an organization. So we're just starting to see some of the first students of this program complete apprenticeships and become journey level workers in their trades. One story that just comes to mind off the top of my head, a lot of people, this is a new start for them, really for everybody. But one guy in particular was a guy named Jonathan who he went through our program a couple of years ago, and I had a chance to catch up with him recently and have a conversation just to check in and see how he was doing. And it was just incredible to hear. He told me that he's opened a savings account for the first time, that he was putting 25% of his income into it, which he had never been able to do before, that he had moved to a nicer place, that he and his wife actually, or his fiance rather, were also in the process of planning a wedding for themselves that was beyond what either of them had ever imagined being able to do just a couple of years before. And so those are the stories that are the reason I do this work. And it really helps you to see, that might not have necessarily been the case for any construction job. If they're going out there working for a temp service or a low road contractor, we see very different outcomes. So it's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing. It's funny you mentioned 25% into a savings account. We do the show at Ironworkers Local 17 in Cleveland, Ohio. And a lot of the members here, the first thing they buy is a Ford F-150 truck because I come into the lot and there's nothing but Fords. There's an occasional GM. They're all union. We know that. But they seem to love those 150s. Well, they're good trucks. They're really good trucks. And speaking of Ford, don't they have a big presence in Tennessee? I think it's called Blue Oval, where they're putting the EV trucks. Vonda, help me out on that.
Yes, it's a really exciting time for that part of the state. Actually, they're building Blue Oval sites in a few different places, one in Kentucky and then the other on the other side of the state line in Tennessee. They're scheduled to open here in 2026. But already they are changing the lives of people in the community. I think the laborers in that have hired more than 400 laborers in that area. And the jobs that they are able to provide are really family sustaining jobs. And so there was a perfect union piece that was done about all of the good things that are happening around the development of Blue Oval. But just like every place else where there is development, with all the pride and prospering, there is also pain that's happening. So you have people that are losing their property because they need to have roads or infrastructure where their property used to be. It's on a cap where aquifer that is a natural way to clean the water. And so they are afraid that the water supply might be impacted in some way. So the community, we've been working over there for the last 2 years, trying to do some community organizing and to also introduce that part of the state to what good unions are all about.
Vonda, I want to stay with you a little bit because I know you're involved in the Central Labor Council. in Middle Tennessee. And in Tennessee, getting back to the lawmakers there, they're not union friendly. Let's be honest. They I mean, that goes down to the rest of the states down there in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. We're seeing the same kind of attitude towards unions. I'm just wondering here, this could be a turning point here for Music City construction careers. And I have to ask you, when you started this, it sounds like it went back, like 5 years ago. When you started this, how were you received in the area? Because, I mean, this was a bold attempt. I mean, it's a great idea. Get involved in the trades. You know the growth. I mentioned the growth in the Nashville area. But how were you received when you started this campaign and this whole industry?
So I will say that there were both opportunities and challenges, like there are with any project. The opportunities were all the cranes, and also I think the average age in the building trades at that time was like 53 years old. So that means that they're going to have a lot of tradespeople to retire over the next 5 to 10 years, and they have to replace that workforce. And so a program like Music City Construction Careers made sense for the trades. But, I mean, you have to fund the work, and people were a little cautious in that area. But since the proof is in the pudding, and we've been able to not just recruit and have training, but also placement. I believe the placement rates are around 70%. We definitely are being invited to places and to tables that we had not been before. So, the Southern Economic Development Model is one that really has failed for working people. And this is our opportunity, person by person, street by street, neighborhood by neighborhood, to shift that paradigm.
MusicCityMC3.org is the website you want to go to. Sam, I want to go back to you. Obviously, you've had success here. You're getting young people involved in the trades. You have to have some goal in mind. You got like 5 years under your belt here. I'm just wondering, where do you see this in the next 5, maybe 10 years from now?
Well, kind of going back to a little bit of what Vonda was saying, Flash, really just doing all that we can to continue to provide high quality technical education, but also using this as a organizing tool, using it to help our construction unions have a more robust workforce, that they can go after more jobs and grow our union density for the industry here in Nashville, and simultaneously providing our unions with union members who understand what a union's all about, and understand that a union, something we say in the class all the time, is that the union is only as strong as the membership. All the union is a collection of union members who are organizing for the things that they need. And so providing people who are ready to do the work that this movement needs to keep growing in Middle Tennessee.
Get them involved in the unions, and then they'll start saying the good things to other people about unions, the importance of unions. That's what it's all about. Yeah, I like that. Well, I appreciate what you're doing down there. I mean, this took an effort, and it seems to be paying off. We're going to have to check in with you down the road and see how things are going. Sam Pechelat, who is the Executive Director of Music City Construction Careers, and Vonda McDaniel, who serves as the President of Music City Construction Careers. Again, that website, MusicCityMC3.org, for those of you listening, especially in the Tennessee area. We want more people in the trades. There's some good jobs there. Sam and Vonda, thank you so much for joining us here on America's Workforce.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you for inviting us.
Thanks, Flash. And I will say we're taking applications right now for our fall program. So thanks so much for having us on.
All right, folks, we have on the line with us now Alexander Edward, a Teamsters UPS driver and host of Minion Death Cult, and What was the other one? Close your tabs or what?
Yeah, close other tabs.
Yes. My wife has been listening to that, I think.
Cool. It's so wonderful.
Yeah.
It's for people who don't know, it's a new podcast I do with my wife where I investigate her suspicious behavior, by which I mean having interests that frighten me and that are probably a threat to me in some way. And so I question her on the podcast all about, a tab she's dived into. We've done the most recent episode was on invasive flora of the Pacific Northwest. And, is this a manifesto? Is that, what is this? And so I hold her to task on it.
Yeah. Well, the women are really getting kind of uppity. So we need to make sure that
they're just scary. They're scary. I need reassurance. I need to know that my wife is not going to use me to incubate new species of native plants and for the next generation. I feel like questions every husband has.
For sure. So check those out. So in the most recent episode of Minion Death Cult, which I have not finished listening to, but I'm like 20 or 30 minutes in, you said something that frightened me. You said that you have been a Teamster for 25 years?
Oh, did I say that? I misspoke. No, I've been a Teamster for 18 years.
18 years. That's still a lot. That's still a lot of years.
Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 36. I've been a Teamster since I was an adult. Yeah.
Golly. That is old. Wow.
Yeah. I was part-time with UPS for 9 years.
Wow.
So because of the 08 recession, they used that as an excuse to not promote anybody. They just put all that weight, put all that volume on existing drivers. They actually did this crazy thing where they would there's like cover driving, which you can do within your center. So it doesn't go by, it's not like a whole contract wide job opening. It's just within your center. You'd go week to week. Some weeks you might be cover driving. Other weeks you might just be back at your part-time position or whatever. Typically you're always driving. They want to keep you driving instead of like hiring on a full-time employee that they have to project out for and just give you, the hours every week. They want to be able to cut you if they want to. And then I found out during the recession, instead of bringing up new cover drivers at the center I was at, they were allowed to borrow cover drivers from other hubs. So I transferred after like my first year and a half to a different hub, and I was seeing dudes with less seniority than me from that old hub get leased out. And it's not scabbing. I'm not saying it's scabbing because it's all within the contract. It fucking pissed me off. But anyway, after 9 years, I was able to get a full-time position.
Well, that's great. But yeah, no, 18 years is not as scary. That 25 years, I was like, wow, you look like really good for 50 years old. Like that's crazy. But but 18 years seems more reasonable. That is. I wanted to bring you on because I wanted to basically talk about some of the stuff that you talked about in your last episode. And a big part of the episode was responding to comments that pro-Trump Teamsters had made about the non-endorsement from the Teamsters International Union. And that's kind of like, for folks that don't know, that's kind of the shtick with the show, is that you take a look at the news through comment section about various stories. And so, you brought some different comments for us. So if folks want to hear the ones that you talked about, all of them that you talked about, they can listen to your program. But I'm interested, you said that you have found more comments about this that are really enlightening and sophisticated and really kind of rigorous political analysis. And so I'm interested in, what's going on.
Yeah, don't worry, folks. I have found more comments. I have gone to the Facebook mines and brought back more material. Yeah, and I'm enlightening is the perfect word to use. You know, we have a motto on Minion Death Cult, and it's study the comments, very enlightening. And that itself is a comment that was on the show, and we've just taken it to heart, and we believe it. You know, there's the news, and then there's the news, and we firmly believe in the power of the real news, which is the Facebook comment section, other social media sites. Yeah, I did this one was. Do you want me to share it onto the screen or just read it to you?
Oh, sure. You've got real fancy technology. Yeah, we can share it on the screen.
Yeah, okay. So I click share screen here. Oh, host disabled participant screen sharing. I'm not allowed to, actually. Okay, that's all right.
Let's see. How about now? Can you share now?
Yes, I can. All right. So this one, it's not from a Teamster. It's from like a personality. This is from I think this is like a TPUSA comedian guy.
Okay.
He
looks funny.
Extremely funny. He already looks funny. It's a good start. His name is K-Vaughn. So he's got a funny name too. This guy is the whole package.
Do you think he became do you think he came onto the scene before or after Theo Von? Like, do you think that's an explicit reference or?
Yeah, perhaps, or like maybe there's just too many Kevins in the comedy world, you know? Kevin Hart being a big one, you got to stand out.
Right. I see. Okay.
I thought he was like, I thought this was going to be a K-pop account because he's like wearing a suit and he's doing like a fashion kind of pose in his profile pic. I was like, is this like a Korean pop character commenting on American politics? But no, I clicked through and he's like, yeah, a TPUSA comedian. But I just loved his comment. Is so cute. K-Vaughn is responding to a post from the other 98%. It's like a progressive Facebook page that shared something about Project 2025 and its, deleterious effects on American labor. And K-Vaughn says, a complete lie. Trump didn't support or endorse this fake project. We've talked a lot about Project 2025 on the show, the Heritage Foundation. I don't know if you guys have probably addressed it on your show as well. Not explicitly a Trump project, just it is, populated. It was written by a bunch of Trump staffers. Trump is very friendly with the Heritage Foundation, has put their candidates in judgeships and on the Supreme Court even. So it's kind of like, I don't know, a pointless argument to say, well, he didn't write it himself. And it's, yeah, but it's like a standard list of Republican things they like, but they're all running away. They're all running scared from it. That's like the funniest part to me is they're all like desperate to say Trump didn't do Trump doesn't like 2025. And it's like, it says all the same shit you guys always say. And you guys know it's unpopular as fuck. So you're like trying to use semantics to say he didn't, lick the ballpoint pen that wrote it or whatever. But anyway, K-Vaughn says a complete lie. Trump didn't support or endorse this fake project. And Trump loves paying overtime because the post was like Project 2025 gets rid of overtime. And so the response naturally back from a Trump supporter is actually Trump loves paying overtime. This is one of the most famous things, but let me just finish the comment before we capitalism wins. Democrats eliminates capitalism. Vote Trump, American flag emoji, and make leftists cry. And this is a lot of the level of pro-Trump. Yeah, I mean, he's not a Teamster, but this is like a lot of the level of discourse you're dealing with. Just like a totally fantastic, like childish view of the world, specifically of politics, that kind of just ends with, I want to upset other people, or I have a grievance, and I think this is like, letting off some steam about it or whatever. And it's nice to see people do it so poorly and so unconvincingly that they set the tone for all of it. You know, I don't know. Like, we had a comment. You'll have to, I guess, listen to the episode. But one of the most embarrassing tweets I've ever seen was an account talking about how much the Teamsters just love Trump and how he's Giga Chad and shit like that. It's like a joke. It's disgusting to me, but also very funny.
You know, I also noticed that there's a space between "Make Leftists Cry" and the 3 exclamation points. And I always enjoy that kind of punctuation. And, you know, he says Trump loves paying overtime. I mean, we obviously, like, that's a silly thing to say. It's just a fact of the matter that as a result of the Trump Department of Labor's policy on overtime, fewer people have been eligible for the last 8 years for overtime as a direct result of his Department of Labor's policy. And I guess because there's like an exemption for overtime, and you don't have to pay overtime if a person makes above X number of dollars, if they have like some sort of executive and managerial type functions, and that threshold, much like the minimum wage, has been stagnant for a very long time. And it has been stagnant for so long that it was stagnant for a while at the end of the Obama administration, and they tried to increase it. They were not able to get it done in the Obama administration before Trump got into office, and so Trump got into office and killed it, right? And so, like, that is what probably the other 98% was referring to, and that's just a fact. And the idea that Trump loves paying overtime is funny because Trump doesn't even love like paying people. Like, one of the famous like one of the famous things about Trump is that he doesn't pay people, right? Including like undocumented Polish immigrants, right, who worked on some of his projects in the 80s and 90s, who he did not pay and, you know, didn't honor the terms of the contract that he had. And then they started trying to organize around that, and he called INS on them back in the 90s or something, right? And so the idea that Trump loves paying overtime is funny because he doesn't want to even pay anybody anything at all, actually.
Absolutely. Like, so much of this is cope. So much of the make leftists cry is like a coping. Man, I mean, this guy's getting paid to do all this, so he's not exactly coping. But so much of it is like a fucking thin veneer of talking points and like sort of you know, the term is overused, but like, you know, a sort of like programming where it's like, okay, yeah, what are your sources? If your sources are anything other than OANN or whatever, like they're not gonna believe it. They're not gonna even read it. It gives them an excuse to not engage with any of the stuff that we're talking about deliberately. And when I get into conversations with people, you know, and again, like, I'm not trying to necessarily steer people towards the Democratic Party. I don't like to engage. You know, when I say engage, I mean like actually talk to people and organize over electoral politics. I think it's like, and just a what do you call it? A dead end at this. Like, people are so, and the Democrats too. The Democrats, they're so singularly focused on Democrat shit that I can't even talk to you about it. Like, I'm not interested in Democrat shit or furthering the Democrat brand or getting the next Democrat elected. I'm interested in making the Democrats do what we need them to do. I'm interested in making the Republicans do what we need them to do. That's the end goal. But when it comes to like Teamsters, like fucking ball washing Trump, I'm like, this is embarrassing, guys. Like, I'm not saying you need to ball wash Harris. I'm just saying, like, look at what you're saying. Like, look at, like, there's another option. Like, I feel like it's just American politics in general that it's like, well, these two, it's one of these parties holds the future. One of the parties has the future in their hand, and we have to invest all our energy into the good party or the bad party or whatever. And that's obvious. I don't know, anybody who pays attention to working class politics, like, that's obviously a distraction. So I do intervene when I want to push people away from especially bad candidates like fucking Donald Trump, you know? the idea that any boss loves paying overtime. What are you talking about?
Yeah, business people famous for loving enjoying paying people more. That's like one of the things they're known for.
So Tony said, this is in one of my Teamsters groups. Again, it's mostly about like Project 2025. I have some responses to the to endorsement stuff here as well, but this is all kind of the same conversation, Trump versus Harris. Tony says, you guys are sheep. He's eliminating tax on overtime, which is something he said recently that got all the reactionary Teamsters soy facing in my Facebook groups. He's eliminating tax on overtime to stimulate work ethic. Kamala is working folks to depend on the government. History knows how that works out. Shrugging emoji. Yeah, I mean, setting aside like the whole, welfare welfare queen thing he's going on. I love the idea that he's eliminating Trump is eliminating tax on overtime to stimulate work ethic. Like even in or pro-worker argument, you have to make it about workers aren't working hard enough. And so that's why he's doing it. Like this stuff is so, I don't know. So it's not necessarily like transparent or like they're hiding something. It's just that they're still all bosses. They're still all like miniature bosses in their heads, even as workers.
Yes. Yes. That is a huge problem. And here's something funny. I think probably Donald, it is actually not unlikely that Trump got this idea from an Alabama Democrat who passed an overtime tax cut in Alabama last year. The House Minority Leader from Huntsville, Anthony Daniels, pushed an overtime tax cut bill through the legislature. And, he was able to kind of make it a Democrat thing because it's like, I'm, a working person's tax cut, and like, fine, whatever. If that's like what we have to do to get good things for working people in Alabama because of the freaks in Montgomery, then okay, like, whatever. I'm not going to be enthusiastic about it because our people shouldn't have to work 60 hours a week. Like we just shouldn't. And like I got in trouble for that. There were some union people that like gave me shit about it because I wasn't, like you said, I wasn't ball washing Anthony Daniels about oh, look how great you are, Mr. Sir. You gave us an overtime. Isn't that such a great thing? Like I don't want my people to work 60 hours a week. Like, that's not a thing that we should be arguing about or that we should want to be stimulating. That's terrible. I do not want to stimulate the working of people for more than 40 hours in a week. That's just crazy.
It's insane argument. If people are working overtime, it's already because they have to. I don't know what you're talking about, like stimulating them to work even more overtime. Everybody in my fucking personal life and social media, union sphere is fucking complaining about how many hours we have to work. Right. And again, like as a person on the left, I'm not in favor of most tax cuts. You know what I mean? Like regressive taxes, sales taxes, I don't like those. But you're not gonna, I don't know. I think if you're a union member and you're making a living wage, you shouldn't have to rely on a tax cut to get by. You should be able to help fund society, which is something we need to do as a society. I'm all for none of that money going to overseas wars, none of that money going to tax breaks for this person or this company or whatever. But in terms of like cutting taxes, that's kind of like a non-starter for me. And it's a distraction. It's like, okay, so you're paying like a slightly smaller percent of your taxes, right? But you still, like you said, have to work, 60 hours a week to survive. Imagine if you could get all that money from the 60-hour work week in 40 hours. Wouldn't that be a better thing than getting a 5% tax cut or whatever on the 20 hours?
Right.
You know, like I don't, it's not where I would put the energy. And that's, you know, it's like the same thing for electoral politics in general. And I don't know, I'm wary of anybody talking about like tax cuts for the working class. That just signals, you know, an erosion of the funds that provide our social safety net, and our social services, which are already eroding, you know?
Yeah, it's really frustrating. And then
hard conversation to have, though. You're right.
Yeah. Right. It's really frustrating. And then they signed this bill in like Hyundai's lobby in Montgomery. And this was at this time when this passed and they did this fancy bill signing. It was only like 6 months or something after their huge child labor scandal, you know, broke. And so I tweeted from our show's account, like, why is Anthony Daniels, you know, laundering the reputation of this kind of, you know, child labor, prison labor exploiting company? And then, you know, he blocked us. So, he knows who I am, and he doesn't like me.
You made a good point. That's what happened.
Yep.
Yeah, so this guy, this is a guy I was seeing in my Teamsters UPS group. I don't even know if he's a Teamster, but I still censored his name just in case he is. His name's Calvin. And this is a response to a Trump endorsement of, I think, Local 89, Teamsters Local 89. No, sorry, not a Trump endorsement, a Harris endorsement. And somebody was saying, yeah, good. Like, I'm glad that union endorsed Harris or whatever. And Calvin says, are you okay with tens of thousands of Americans dying every year from fentanyl? Some things are bigger than any union. Country first. You have kids. So this is something that I don't know if this guy is actually a Teamster. He seems to be just kind of like a shit stirrer in this group. But something I have seen from other Teamsters is, you know, people I'm presumably Teamsters in these groups, is some things are bigger than your union. And it's like, what, like litter boxes in public schools?
Right.
Like, what are you talking about? What is bigger than you and your family's livelihood? And not just you and your family's livelihood, but like the livelihood of the entire working class. Because that's what unions at least used to represent. And one day, hopefully, could. It's the only possible way forward for the working class. And it rings a lot of alarm bells when people are like, yeah, sure, your union rights are good, but what about cops dying of fentanyl poisoning by the thousands? Like, I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't watch enough local news. You know, people are dying of drug overdoses, but that's because of fucking poverty. That's not because that's not because Kamala is smuggling fentanyl into the country or something. Like, I don't, you know, it's just it feels absurd on the face of it. It feels like a bit of desperation on behalf of Trump supporters. And it's funny because, you know, as much as they cry about fake news and yada, 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 like the media is overwhelmingly on the side of wealthy people, bosses, landlords, everybody who holds power over us. So it's just funny to see them like still have to like level up the fear mongering about fentanyl or something, as if we're not dated with that all the time anyway. You know, it feels a little desperate.
Yes, I agree. And it's also not even clear to me what the Trump prescription on this is, because like most fentanyl is coming through legal ports of entry. Like most of it is not actually being, the vast is like 90% of it is not coming, like people are not, you know, army crawling under the wall to bring the fentanyl in.
I have $1 million. I have $1 million worth of fentanyl. I think I'm going to give that to an undocumented immigrant with a coyote going across.
Yeah, exactly. who's going to go through not a port of entry. That I run a multi-million-dollar underground crime company. I depend on undocumented immigrants army crawling through the desert to get my products to you. No, that's not actually what happens.
Yeah, and just I don't know, there's a fentanyl problem in a town or something. I don't know, why don't you give them $40 an hour jobs and see if the problem clears itself up? You know what I mean? Like I don't there's very clear solutions to these actual issues, you know. And I will I guess engage teams when they bring this stuff up, they bring up, it's funny to see them bring up Kamala Harris's track record as a prosecutor. She imprisoned thousands of, black and brown men for drug crimes. And it's like, oh shit, hell yeah, prison abolition, man. Welcome to the conversation. Thank you. They're all just like little permissions to support your guy. You just find these little permissions wherever you can that insulate you from your pre-existing beliefs or whatever. And I feel like a lot of these elections come down to who is less embarrassing to be publicly voting for. And Biden was up there. It was super embarrassing to be seen supporting Biden. You just you couldn't, and that's going to translate to votes. That's going to translate to turnout, and Trump's already embarrassing to support, but they don't care. A lot of these people don't care. But I mean, he lost. A lot of people care. A lot of people see him as a fucking loser, see him as annoying, get the fuck off my TV kind of guy. And yeah, so they're finding ways to give themselves permission to continue supporting Trump or continue believing the things they believe, like with the the eating cats and pets and stuff in Springfield, Ohio. They were like, oh, finally, an excuse to be loud about our support of Trump. We hate these immigrants so much. This will look good for us all screeching about pets being eaten on the internet, and it really didn't, but they're still doubling down. There's still people reporting on Springfield, Ohio right now, trying to found a new thing about it. But I think
there's people on the radio that still are just pretending that it's totally real, and it's bizarre because it's you don't have to do this. No one is making you do this. Why are you doing this? It's really crazy. And Trump's response on the stage, I saw it on the TV, so I don't know. I mean, it's that is really kind of indicative of how, people Biden's brain is gone, but I think that the extent to which Biden's brain has been gone has really obscured just how gone Trump is. That is the most just boomer old man kind of thing that I've ever heard anybody say in public, right? I saw it on the TV. So, oh, well, if you saw it on Newsmax, I guess it must be true.
Yeah, that's the thing is I don't even know what TV he saw. Did Don Jr. have Twitter shared the screen to the TV or something, because he's always done that. He loves watching TV and he loves Fox. He loved Fox News and calling into Fox News and talking to them and all that stuff. But it's just gotten to where his TV is now probably curated by Laura Loomer.
Right.
That's the shit he's seeing now. It's a degradation for sure.
So I think we've got time for one more, and we'll probably wrap it up. So give us your best one. Oh, yeah. I'll be leaving the union then.
Yeah, a lot of people complaining about this. Jimmy says Trump, we need to endorse Trump. we need to stop paying union dues. Like these are Miranda says, I'll be leaving the union then. It's not like, see, this is under the endorsement of Harris from the Teamsters. It's not like they do a thing for us anyway. Not worth it. Like how
go work for FedEx then, if that's what you think.
How low information do you have to be to think that the union does nothing? What do you think everybody else's job is like? It doesn't have a union. Incredible. This is the long version of that, though. Casey says the problem is way bigger than a damn union. These Harris supporters just care about a damn union. Not that their kids will never own a house or be successful in their future. You could put Candace Owens in there, and I would vote for her over the current catastrophic. Yeah. I love that. You could put an even crazier right-wing person in there, and I would vote for her. That's not saying much, dude.
Right.
But yeah, why do people care about unions? What I care about is good wages, home ownership, success in your career, the ability to retire. All of that stuff is way more important than union. Just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Very low information. It is frustrating, especially because of how voluntary union membership is in this country. Like, you could always just go, like, there's like 93% of private sector workplaces that you could work at that are not union. Like, if you don't like it, then just don't be here, right? I mean, that's the argument that they tell us. If we want to do a union at our job, they say, oh, well, you should just leave. Well, they should actually just leave. Like, get out of my union.
Well, unfortunately, in right-to-work states, they can, quote, leave by not paying dues.
Right.
And then I had a crazy conversation with somebody on Twitter who, like, thought that in right-to-work states, that meant that employees have the right to make their own negotiations with the employer and not accept, and they couldn't accept the union contract. They had to negotiate on their own. It's like, no, not at all. That's not at all what, like, first of all, what person would be like, okay, here's the union wage. I'm going to negotiate on my own with the employer where they're going to offer me a lower wage because I'm one person. I'm not bringing like irreplaceable skills to this warehouse job or manual labor job or whatever. What person would accept that and not just go, well, I think I actually get hired with the union now, as a matter of fact, but people are virgins about this stuff. They don't know, they don't like, they just hear it. They see a meme like Casey here. I don't even know that he's like low information, but he's got the Trump photo as his profile pic. He's just like a fanboy. He's just like the model voter, the model like Republican Party fan, because he's not a member of the party. You can't be a member of the Republican Party. You can just be a fan of them. And he's got to somehow like work backwards from that. He's got to somehow justify that.
Right. Yeah, it's bonkers. They're in a death cult, you might say.
I'm glad we didn't endorse either candidate, but we didn't endorse for the wrong reasons. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, it is kind of bonkers. Some of the, and like, there are a lot of people that are really upset with the Teamsters about it. And, I don't know. I think that if you're not going to not endorse over Palestine, you should probably, as an international union, it probably makes sense to endorse. But, it is frustrating knowing that Kamala Harris gave them the out that they needed to be able to kind of make a real union case for it. Specifically, I'm referring to committing to not invoking the Railway Labor Act to break a strike for the rail Teamsters.
She committed to that?
She did not commit to that.
Oh, is that one of the asks?
Yeah, that was that. That was one of the asks that Sean O'Brien said that she wouldn't commit to, and I think there was something else. There was like two things I think that Harris wouldn't commit to, but the one that I remember right now was not invoking the Railway Labor Act to break a strike. She would not commit to do that. She would not commit to not doing that. They asked her, please don't do this, and she said, I can't tell you. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. And it's like, you could if you had just made that commitment, I think that Sean O'Brien probably would have felt like he had to endorse, or at least it would have made him look even sillier for not endorsing. But then also on the other side, I mean, Trump could have given them everything that they had asked for, everything that they wanted, and then he could have actually gotten. I think that O'Brien would have endorsed if Trump had just committed to vetoing national right to work and supporting some version of the PRO Act, which is the language that Sean O'Brien had been using, some version of the PRO Act, which is not. Anyway, if he had committed to those two things, I think the Teamsters would have endorsed Trump, and I think that should tell people how committed Trump is to the kind of business Project 2025 type agenda, that he couldn't make those two commitments to the Teamsters to get that endorsement, which would have been huge for Trump. And people should be concerned about that, I think.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that there were any specific asks. I didn't hear about that. It's interesting. I really feel like it was weird because they did town hall meetings. Teamsters held town hall meetings where you would come in person and vote for whether you wanted to endorse Harris or Trump. I didn't go to that because I didn't care enough about the endorsement. All of those town halls went for Harris. Everybody who actually goes to their union hall and participates in the union all went for Harris. They also did a third party online survey that I didn't even know about. I heard about this from I don't even remember where I heard about it. I heard it like word of mouth. They were like, "Oh, did you vote?" And then I was like, "What? There's a fucking online survey?" And so that's the one that went 60% for Trump. And I got people in my life who were like, you need to talk to Sean O'Brien for not endorsing Harris or yada yada yada. And I'm like, I'm shocked he didn't endorse Trump. Like, they had all the cover he needed. I don't know. Like, I don't know what Sean O'Brien's politics are. It seems like he was fucking flirting pretty hard with the Republican Party. We've been giving money now to the Republican Senate, like election committee and shit like that, or whatever it is. I'm surprised we didn't endorse Trump with that 60% number right there in the record. And I think it's because a lot of the other people on the Teamsters executive board did not want to endorse Trump for obvious reasons. And so I think Sean O'Brien knew the political will or the reality wasn't there. And so he didn't want to be seen voting to endorse Trump while everybody else voted no endorsement. And so we just had no endorsement. And again, I'm cool with that. I think it was for like the wrong reasons, because we're like basing it on, I guess, Trump support online versus Harris support in real life. And I'm not surprised like a bunch of online guys voted for Trump, like there's a lot of conservative Teamsters, but I don't know if it's 60%. Like, I don't know about that sample,
Yeah. I just can't buy that. All of the like polling that I've seen of union members, all of the union members that I met, all the union meetings that I've been to from my union and other unions, and talking to Teamsters, I cannot believe that it's actually like 60% of the Teamsters members want to endorse Trump. I can't. That's difficult to believe. It really is. I'm not typically a poll denier, but it's difficult to believe that one.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 4% turnout for that Trump vote. Like it's a pretty low turnout. Like, it's not just a poll. It's not just like we conducted a poll with random sampling data and random phone numbers or whatever. It was supposedly a vote. It was open
Right.
to all Teamsters, and you only got 4% in there
Right.
participate. I'm not going to believe any number that comes out of that, you know?
Right. Yeah. But not good that there's any kind of sample of Teamsters that you can get that they say that there's 60% in favor of Trump. But yeah,
It's the whole, I won't go on for long. Just real quick, I wanted to say it's my whole problem with like electoral politics. It's like once every 4 years, we're gonna make Teamsters think right. Like, what are you talking about? You know, like I got a text from like Teamsters Against Trump, which means just Teamsters for Harris. You know, they're talking about like electoral politics. Will you join us in the fight? And it's like, no, join me in the fight of trying to educate rank and file working class people, like our power, where our power comes from, our actual relationship to capital and to bosses, and that's a fight worth having. That's energy worth putting towards, because you're going to keep getting the same problems every 4 years. Democrats are going to keep getting worse. They're going to keep shifting rightward and bringing Dick Cheney into the party and shit like that. And they're going to be even harder for your average Democrat to defend to their coworkers or to their, it's like, who's more embarrassing to be seen supporting? And it's like, the Democrats are pretty embarrassing to be seen reporting. No offense to everybody out there, but like, it's a hard ask. And, God bless you for shouldering that if you're a Democratic voter or whatever. But like, that's just the reality of it. And it's not going to get any better until we do some class consciousness on everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I broadly agree about like the importance of, focusing on class politics and union work. I mean, I specifically, like, I dabbled in when I got kind of politicized in 2015. I dabbled in doing electoral work and like working, in those kinds of politics, and I didn't like it. I didn't feel very empowered, and so I got involved in my union, and that's I really feel like it's much more meaningful. I do have to say I'm not totally sure if I buy the idea that like Democrats are moving right. I think that what a Harris administration does, I think, is kind of TBD. But I think as long as I've been paying attention to politics, the Democrats have, in particular on domestic issues, been moving to the left, and I think that looking at the Biden administration, I mean, aside from what's been going on in Israel, which is a big aside, and we need to talk about it, and it's important, and people need to understand it. All of those caveats that are there. Like domestically, I mean, people say he's the most pro-union president since FDR, and it's kind of like, it is more of it's more of a statement about like how low the bar is, but it's still true, right? I mean, that's just like, or at least since LBJ. I think LBJ you would probably say that he's a more pro-union, pro-worker domestically than Biden. But I mean, if it's not Biden, then who is it, right? With Obama, Biden, or Obama, or Clinton, or Bush,
Reagan,
or Bush too, or Reagan? Yeah, exactly.
Reagan was president in the but. No. Yeah, for domestic issues, like, yeah, sure, better than Republicans, and like I'm not a vote shamer either way. Like I think once you get to the election, like the work has already been done.
Right.
Once you're on the voting day, and it's fairly simple for people to cast their vote. And like, I believe in voting, like, even if you don't like either candidate, I believe in picking your enemy, picking who you want to go up against, picking who you have a better chance fighting, basically. Yeah, in terms of, I guess, domestic policy, I would push back and say like the surveillance state and the domestic like ramp up of police, very anti-worker, like that, like, and just like the empowering of Silicon Valley and the tech industry in general is very, very, very bad for workers, even if it doesn't like touch union jobs, because talking about like new businesses and new, shit that hasn't been unionized yet or whatever. That stuff is really bad for workers and just everybody in general. But like, and obviously Israel and what we're empowering Israel to do is insane. But just foreign policy in general, like, I mean, the Democrats are just neocons now when it comes to foreign policy, and that's really bad. That spells a lot of trouble for any number of reasons. But yeah, I like when it comes to the vote, like there's not much you can do, I don't think, about who the president is. There's not much any individual can do about who the president is. All you really have is the vote. And that's like my criticism of electoral politics, is that all you can do is vote. Maybe you can door knock, like maybe that'll change, maybe that'll change something. But it's very limited scope, and so I'm like, yeah, sure, vote every 4 years, every 2 years or whatever. But like the bigger fight has to happen outside, because all the, a Democrat can say they're pro-union or whatever, but how pro-union they are depends on how strong we are. And so,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. The strength of the labor movement is really important. There was I can't remember. I think I was listening to, I think it was, the new Haymarket podcast, Fragile Juggernaut, about the CIO. I think that's the one that I was listening to. And they were talking about how, Eisenhower spoke in exactly the same way as like like any other pro-business Republican, but in office, he sided with the United Steelworkers against the steel industry in a strike, and basically got the steelworkers everything that they wanted from the steel companies, even in the face of political pressure from the broader public, because there was concern about inflation. And there was this whole in the media about, wage price spiraling and stuff. And so there was a lot of pressure on Eisenhower to resolve the strike in favor of the companies, and he didn't. He resolved it in favor of the steelworkers, a Republican president. And conversely, there was something that happened like on the opposite, in the opposite way. There was a Democrat who said something about would never invoke Taft-Hartley, and then they invoked Taft-Hartley or something like that, right? And so like there's a real importance, I think, that unions in their political messaging are not, that they don't push enough, because like it was our power independently, the independent political power that unions had, that forced Eisenhower to resolve a strike in our favor. And it was the lack of independent political power that was not able to make Biden do the same thing for the rail workers in 2022, right? Yep. If the Teamsters and the and the rail machinists and the smart rail union, if they had the same power along with the rest of the unions that the steelworkers did in the 50s, Biden couldn't have pulled that shit, right? And so there, like you said, there's an importance in like picking your enemies, and maybe it's worth investing resources to elect a weaker enemy. Maybe it's not, and maybe we should think about how much resources we devote to that. But the prize has to be independent working class power. I think you're exactly right about that.
People can have opinions. A politician can have the good opinion or say the good thing, but yeah, when they're in office, they're reacting to pressures. Mm-hmm. They're reacting to forces on them, and if you don't have a countervailing force to the other shit that's going on, like too bad. They're not going to hear from you.
Right. Yep. All right. Alexander Edward, Minion Death Cult. Close other tab.
That's it. Close other tabs with Alex and Ani.
There you go. Thank you so much for taking the time. We went a little long, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. You guys were on a recent episode of Minion Death Cult. I believe I don't remember what number it is, but it's in the last few weeks, and you guys, Valley Labor Report is in the title. Very fun episode. recommend everybody check it.
Check it out. All right. See you later.
Bye.
All right, folks, you are still listening to the Valley Labor Report, Alabama's only union talk show, and we're really excited to have this conversation today. We're going to be talking a little bit about mutual aid in the state of Alabama and how working class people are building each other up, supporting each other, and talk a little bit with Zach and Mikkel about a new film that is coming out telling this story. So y'all, welcome to the Valley Labor Report. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yes, absolutely. So, Zach, you are no stranger to the program. You've been on before. But for folks who, are new to the show or maybe missed those episodes, could you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background and, what led you to this point where you have a short documentary coming out about your work.
Yeah, my name is Zach Hayden, and I'm a community organizer and ASE certified auto technician. I started the automotive free clinic in March of 2020 as sort of a response to the pandemic. I felt like that people would be in crisis and that they would be needing help. I also felt like people would be more generous during that time, and it would be an opportunity to raise more money. So we started during the pandemic as a mobile shop. We did that for a year. We moved into a brick and mortar shop after about a year, and then after about another year, we moved into a much larger shop. Currently, I have resigned from the Automotive Free Clinic. I'm sort of like emeritus executive director. I haven't been involved with the Automotive Free Clinic over the past 7 months. I resigned to be a stay-at-home dad. I got my boy Hank here right next to me. And that's pretty much me. I've been a community organizer for about 25 years. I started out in college organizing at Auburn. I went to Berkeley, got a PhD. I did a bunch of work in Birmingham, Alabama, helped get a mayor elected, and moved to Montgomery and kind of started over in Montgomery with maybe a different type of attitude and approach.
Gotcha. Yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate it. And how about you?
Well, I am a video and film director and editor in New York City. Lived here for almost 10 years, and I work on a lot of corporate and commercial content, and then I make short documentaries on my own time. So this is my most recent project.
Yeah, so I'm really interested, how did you get involved in this? And how did you, from New York City, hear about this project down in Alabama?
Yeah, so my friend, Rob Kaiser-Schatzline, started it. He wrote an article for Lux magazine about Zach and the AFC. And we were just, he had shared the article and we were talking about what a great subject for a short documentary this would be. And then I sort of went ahead and made it. So Rob really deserves credit for finding the story for, a non-Alabama audience. And yeah, he did a great job writing that article.
That's great. Yeah, I love that. And I love the connections being made there. And, was there anything that, before I turn it back to Zach to talk more about the clinic itself and this project, the subject of the film, was there anything about the film making process or just, coming down here to Alabama that you really, that is going to stand with you or stick with you? Any memories that you really made or anything that stands out in terms of this process?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I loved every day of shooting the film. And then I really enjoyed coming down for the premiere at the Sidewalk Film Festival a couple of weeks ago. I just felt like there are so many interesting stories. I feel like there's a line in the film where Zach goes like, "There's no cookie cutter people in Alabama," and it resonates because I feel like everybody that I spoke with had their own really interesting story that I wish could be its own film as well. Yeah, I feel like I just met so many interesting people during the filming of this project. So
yeah, I think that's something.
Stay with me.
I think that's something that like a lot of us in Alabama can attest to, that there are a lot of characters down here. And a lot of folks with some really interesting backstories for sure. So that's really cool, and I'm really glad you were able to have that opportunity and get a taste of what it's like down here and some of the people and the culture. So Zach, tell us more about the Automotive Free Clinic. It's the subject of the short documentary. So tell us a little bit about what it is. How does it work, and what led you to create this project?
Yeah, it's a nonprofit automotive repair shop. It's a full service shop. It basically, the shop does repairs at cost. So customers pay commercial costs for the parts, and then we solicit donations for what the labor would be. So it's a real simple sort of setup. We get grants and donations to pay the bills and keep the doors open. And the idea with charging customers cost is that everybody has a little skin in the game, and I think that's really key to mutual aid and cooperative type institutions, is that working class people all sort of work together to build each other up and take care of each other. And working class people do this already,
right?
But one of the things that we wanted to do was to institutionalize this. We weren't reinventing the wheel. Working class mechanics help other working class people keep their cars on the road. It's not something new for working class redneck type people. But to institutionalize it gives it a formality and the ability to influence the larger community in a way that just doing it sort of informally doesn't. Another reason why I resigned from the Automotive Free Clinic is I got a weird kind of identity in that I'm kind of working class, but I have a PhD, so I'm not really working class. And I think it was important to turn it over to actual working class people to be able to do it for themselves. And right now the organization has been going for 7 months without me, and working class, actual working class people, not people with PhDs and that sort of stuff, but actual working class people are doing the jobs and working the institution itself and taking care of the people in their community. And I think that's extremely important going forward, because our institutions in the United States are ossified, rigid. They have a hard time changing. In some ways, they're kind of crumbling in on themselves. And I think it's important for working class people to create their own institutions, so that if there was a crisis in the United States, or as people have called it now, a polycrisis, that working class people would be able to survive those crises.
Yeah, I think that is so important, what you're talking about in terms of building our own institutions. I mean, listeners of this show know we're a labor union talk show. We really are promoters of labor unions because we see it as a source of working class power, right? It's a way for working class people to come together to build power at the point of production where we work, where we spend most of our time. But unions are not the only institutions. And I really appreciate the emphasis on mutual aid and cooperatives, because I think it takes all those different approaches to build the sort of institutions that are for us and by us. Because, as you said, like so many of the institutions that we deal with in our society, whether it's government or church or you name it, they've all been on the decline, really, for a long time. And there's a lot of issues that we're facing as a people. And the more we can stick together, the more we can help each other out through this. So that, I think, really, leads me into my next question for you, Zach, which is, why automotive? Like, why fixing cars, right? Like, there's a lot of different things that we need as working class people, a lot of needs in the community. So, yeah, why fixing cars? Why was that kind of the angle that you took on helping working class folks?
I mean, in some respects, it's just what I could do. I was an auto technician before I went to college for like 7 years. So it's just the skill that I had. I think this type of institution could be done with any type of working class skill, whether it be building houses or doing plumbing or doing electrical work. I think, it could be done with any kind of skill like that. Another reason because people need vehicles to be able to basically survive, get to doctor's appointments, get to work, get their kids to school. We have a very poor public transportation system in the state of Alabama, and in rural areas, like Prattville is a small rural town. The rural areas, there's no public transportation whatsoever, and if you're walking, one of the people in the film talked about if you're walking miles to work. So if people don't have a vehicle, their life pretty much falls apart. So I guess the two reasons were is like auto repair is something that I knew how to do, and it's needed to be able to have any type of meaningful life.
Right. And, I think there's a couple of lessons there. Obviously, the dismal state of transportation in the state of Alabama. Our state legislature invests $0 in public transportation. As you said, in rural areas, it basically doesn't exist. And we are a very car-dependent culture here. The way our infrastructure is laid out, just like you said, I mean, it's difficult to go to work, to go to doctor's appointments, go grocery shopping. You need a car. So that's huge. But also what you said that really resonates with me is like, it's what you could do, right? It's the skill that you had that you could contribute. And I think that's a really important lesson for folks that, like, no matter who you are, you have some kind of skill, you have some kind of talent, you have something to contribute, right? You can give back in some sort of way that can empower the community and really help other folks, which will ultimately help you. And I see you've got your son here with you. Love the cameo. Our youngest fan of the Valley Labor Report. Hopefully our youngest and newest fan of the Valley Labor Report, but we'll have many more on the way, I'm sure. But welcome to the show. And
he's named after Hank Williams, so he's gonna be a good redneck boy.
Awesome. I love it. Precious boy. I can tell you've got a lot on your plate, but really appreciate y'all making some time for me today. I wanted to give y'all a chance to just give some final words and any final plugs that you have, specifically how folks can support the Automotive Free Clinic and also how they can view the film.
Well, for the film, we premiered at Sidewalk Film Festival, but we're waiting to hear from a number of other festivals, and then hopefully we can get the film online or distributed in some form. So that's still to come, I guess.
Stay tuned. Yeah, stay tuned.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And Zach, we're screening the film at City of Montgomery Public Library on October 6th from 3 to 5 p.m. After the film, there's going to be a discussion about the film between Reverend Shane Eisner and myself. I also wanted to say that the Automotive Free Clinic is part of a network of mutual aid and educational organizations called the Educational and Economic Resource Organizing Network. And it includes organizations in Camp Hill, Walker County, Gunnersville, West Virginia, and potentially North Carolina. And it's a loose sort of confederation of organizations in the sense that we communicate and support each other, but there's no top-down, you do this, you do that type thing. Everybody has their own autonomy. It's just sort of a supportive network to make sure that everybody can continue to provide the resources and educational resources for their communities.
I love that. I love it. And, I really think that this is a fantastic project worth supporting. I think that, like you said, these are ideas that could be translated to other skill sets, other areas. But, I would love to see an automotive free clinic in every corner of the state. I would love to see organized labor get behind these kind of projects and see the value it could bring to our membership. There's just so much potential there, and I really appreciate it. Both of you, thank you for your time. Thank you for the good work you're doing, for telling this story. And thanks for joining the Valley Labor Report.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.